I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but I have the window open so that we can hear the rain. But like I said, I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, so it might just be me that gets to hear it. Oh well. You know, lower the fan so that if you guys can hear the rain, so that if it's possible, you know. Ooh, that's some good coffee. I don't have that much weed, but I do have this little bit that's left from a cigarillo, and I'm gonna split it open and I'm gonna roll it into a little pinner blunt because I feel like smoking a blunt. Howdy, howdy. What's up, asbestos fingers? Did you catch my conversation with Paul this morning? That shit was pretty fun. I do think it's interesting how much the worm has turned when it comes to language policing. I mean, it's a policy that I used to advocate for, honestly. It's something I used to advocate for a lot, and then I don't know, over the last year, I feel like I've just looked at the effects and been like, has this led to anything positive for us? Has this actually led to anything positive for the American people? And the answer that I've come to is no. Me and the boys are low ourselves trying to conserve right now. Yeah, I should be trying to conserve, but I need this blunt. It's been too long. Phoebe Ophi and World Unknown. Aw. What's up? What's up? Once again, I don't know if you'll feel comfortable with me saying your real name over here, so I'm just going to call you by your username. What's up, Spoopy D? I am having such a great afternoon, honestly. It finally started raining down here, which, I mean, it had rained pretty recently, but then it got really hot and really humid, and rain is pretty much the only thing that rescues us from that down here. So, pretty happy that it finally started raining. I'm trying to roll me a micro blunt, but I don't know how well it's going to work. We're just going to have to see. Just going to have to see. Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! You can call me Amelia. It's been okay. Okay, cool. Cool. That'll make things easier. I won't feel like such a weirdo. It's a lot cooler here, too. That's good. That's good. Although, from my understanding, the area you guys live in is normally pretty nice compared to, at least compared to the Deep South. Or, from what Paul has said, it seems like it's a lot nicer than fucking the Central Valley was, which is good. But yeah, it's good that you guys are cooling off too. Muggy weather sucks. Hot weather fucking blows. I don't care who you are. I don't care what the excuse is. Yes, there's more sunlight in summer. You know what else there is? Endless amounts of mosquitoes, endless amounts of flies, endless amounts of all of the worst aspects of like a hot and muggy place are made worse in the summer. So fuck them. If literally the 6 months I spent living in Massachusetts were the best 6 months of my life when it comes to just baseline. What did I have access to? What was the weather like? It went from 80s to high 60s. Oh, I wish. God, man. I'd kill people for that kind of weather down here. Okay, well, maybe I wouldn't go quite that far, but you get the idea. You get the idea. I wish I had something I could poke this weed down with, because it's, you know, it's kind of an important part of this process. What the hell are you? I am a mystery to man, and an indignity to the gods. I'm the snow that falls on the mountain in December and melts in May. I am the sound of the brook trickling through the streams. What, through the streams? Whatever. I was trying to sound cool and epic there for a second, but I fucked up, so don't worry about it. Here we go. This'll do. This'll do quite nicely. Yes. Sorry, didn't mean to be mean. Oh, well, luckily for you. Luckily for you, you've landed on the most toxic corner of YouTube, so even if you had tried to be mean, we weren't going to ban you. Don't worry. I figure I convince way more people to take trans people seriously by just like letting everything fall off my back like water off a duck than I do by getting like super duper uber offended. Oh my god, I can't believe they said faggot. Will I ever recover? No, you know. I just don't find that to be a very productive way to spend my time. I don't think that that kind of attitude has gotten queer people a whole lot over the last 5 years. I mean, it would get annoying, I guess, if somebody started spamming it in here, but it would get annoying because they're spamming, not because of the word they're using. I don't know if Amelia is still listening, but I think it's funny. I started well, when I offered to come on the channel, Paul's channel earlier, the original offer was, if you're in an argumentative mood, let's talk about eugenics and hydropower. But when we actually started the conversation, Paul was still so raring to go, I guess you could say, over the topic of language policing and shit. And I was like, you know what? If that's where his passion is at, I'm just gonna steel man these points because this is an important message. People need to get over this fucking idea that every conversation needs to be like perfectly polite and kind and nice and everything, because frankly some people just aren't going to come at you that way, and you can choose whether or not you continue talking to them or not, but to try and like prevent them from talking in that way seems strange to me. It seems like the way more reasonable response, if you really couldn't listen to that kind of language, would be like, just be like, listen, I can't do it. I can't do these kinds of contentious conversations, so I'm going to walk away. Thank you for wanting to participate in this way, but I'm just not the type of person that can listen to that kind of language without freaking out, so I will take my leave here. That's like whatever. You do you. But why on earth do people feel like they literally like have a right? It's like some people think they have like a God-given or an earth-given right to like make a bunch of demands of someone's language, but yet still continue to talk to them and shit. So that shit was fun. I don't even mind that we didn't get to the subject matter. That's fine. That's cool. Sorry. Hey, Phoebe, really respect your outlook on that. That's refreshing. Well, thanks, Kimmy. Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily trying to be like super refreshing, but I guess I am in a way, because I do feel like there's been kind of like universally one response or kind of outlook that comes out of a lot of people that that are in my position of being like an open, like out and out trans person and who do political conversations. I feel like the usual response to people with a more bigoted attitude or a backwards mindset when it comes to the trans issue, the normal response is to just freak out and be super mad and get really salty and talk about them in terms that would be pretty reprehensible if those people turned around and talked about us in that way. So it's kind of like you get more flies with honey than with vinegar kind of approach. We finally have it, folks. The micro blunt. So I smoked about 2/3 of this cigarillo, and I have rolled the rest of it up into a blunt. Okay? You want to play it like that? Gay? What the fuck could possibly be gay about a blunt? No, unhide that motherfucker. I don't want you to tell me what the fuck could possibly be gay about a blunt. Would that count as a spliff? No. A spliff is a spliff rather is a cannabis product that is rolled with it's rolled with. So okay, I'm not 100% sure. It's not a spliff because it doesn't have tobacco mixed up with the weed that's rolled inside of it. But I don't know if something can be both a blunt and a spliff, right? I don't know. I can see both sides wanting to set a standard in some places, knowing it comes with the risks of pushing perspectives away. Yeah, that's fair. Gay. Oh, gay? Are we just spamming gay? Gay, 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 gay. No, yeah. I think there's definitely room for a moderated debate with like a tone and timbre decided beforehand, and like I think there's room for that sort of thing. I'm not saying that there should not be any public discourse with any rules set for it, but I do think that the less rules are on a piece of public discourse, the more honest the perspectives are. But there is, I will admit, right, that there is a delineating line between like you can go too far with it where you're just not getting any sort of productive conversation because effectively nobody can say anything of substance because like everything is allowed to just go to like a name calling place or something like that. So there, like, obviously there's space for decorum, but what I wonder, I guess, is how much is that responsibility on, like, how much is the responsibility for decorum, like how much is that on the people who are doing it, right? Another dude acting like a chick. Come on, just stop. I have been trans, my friend, for 5 fucking years, and there is not a goddamn thing that you or anybody else is going to say to me that's going to change that. If it offends you, I'm sorry that you're small-minded and can't take another person's living their life in stride. Honestly, though, the fact of it is you might not be small-minded in all areas. This might just be one of those areas that you haven't had a lot of exposure in. But welcome to the channel. You'll begin to get a lot of exposure right now. Where do we go when we die? When we all fall asleep, where do we go? What do you want from me? When do you go to sleep? Where we all go to sleep, when do we go? I don't know. I'm not convinced that we go anywhere when we die. But yeah, I think there's room for it, definitely. I think that there's like a place for that kind of thing if you're trying to have like some sort of like if you're trying to discuss a very specific idea in front of a very specific audience and like it's of enough like cultural or national import, then maybe you've got a good situation to implement some rules when it comes to conduct. But a lot of that, I think, is going to have less to do with the language that people use and more to do, with more to do with other tactics that people will use, Of course, even then, I personally think it's really cool whenever I'm watching an interaction with somebody and when it's not a very highly organized interaction. I like it when somebody tries some kind of tactic that works usually, but that can be skirted around. I like to see that. I like to see the human exchange between somebody using a tactic that works on most people and then another person deftly dodging around that. A tactic that perhaps would be disallowed under the terms of a more organized debate. I think that sort of thing, seeing human beings in challenging situations conversationally, is super fucking interesting, super fascinating. and it makes you better at doing it. Like if you're, you know, if you're like my dumbass and you like arguing with every dumb motherfucker that comes across your way, it can be really good to listen to those kinds of arguments, like the one that Paul and Alchemist Oil had, or like the one that Paul and Jamie had, or the argument where all of the DFF boys were arguing with Bosch. Any of these arguments are great to watch because there's not like some strict rule set. And I mean, there's, I guess, like some unwritten rules that are being followed by both parties, but there's not some strict agreed to rule set that is keeping them from having an outburst like, yeah, well, manage your finances better. You know, like, I'm really glad that there was nothing, I'm really glad that there was nothing that's not the word I'm looking for, restricting that content, you know, in a way that would have prevented that sort of thing. I mean, that was just such a great moment. Man, everybody's getting banned right now. Dude, by the way, there's 121 people in here. If all of you guys liked right now, we would have like 65 likes all at once. Think about how fucking cool that would be. And all you have to do is double tap your screen or hit the little button. I think it's somewhere up here. Somewhere. Pretty sure. And you can also live react down there. And one last final personal plug. If you want to make absolutely sure that your question gets read, send it in a super chat because I read every single one as long as it doesn't violate TOS. So I'm not going to call for you lynching your neighbor on super chat, but short of that, I'll read just about anything you say. Oh, and I'm not going to read out outright Nazi misinformation. That's another thing that I've had to take a hard line on, you know. Although somebody probably will con me into reading a 1488 at some point. Hell, because I've said it, there's probably some dumbass gearing up to do it right now. So, you know. So I didn't see the entire discussion you had with Paul. What did you guys end up discussing? Well, I had originally offered to talk about eugenics and my stance on sustainable energy that would include hydropower and nuke. But we didn't end up even getting to that topic. We just basically talked about language policing and the fact that it was kind of funny, right? Because I had this thesis at the beginning of the conversation between me and him where I said, I feel like this is a tactic that has earned, and you know, I should have said maybe at that point, I know that not everything should be framed through a political lens, but I feel like that, you know, me being someone who does a lot of what I would consider leftist advocacy on this channel, I can't help but think about it. When I think about language policing, I can't help but think about it as a leftist policy. I recognize that it's something the right uses too, to some extent, but it's way more prevalent on the left, and it's something that I think hasn't netted us a whole lot of support or a whole lot of like praise. You know, it's like, well, you know, the way Paul put it earlier was pretty poignant, that it's an academic thing that's spilled out into the street and into the mouths of small-minded dumb fucks. And so now it's just something, all of these weird little language policing rules are things you're hearing everywhere, when originally they were things that were meant for like college debates and college classrooms and shit. And they were not meant to, they were not meant to protect people's feelings so much as they were to absolutely ensure that only that which was educationally relevant in that moment could be an object of discussion. And that's just not how human conversation works. But it's something that now there's a big group of people that have tried to append it to conversation. And I had this thesis at the beginning of my conversation with Paul where I was like, I think that this shit has basically earned the left a lot of ridicule and a lot of scorn over the last 5 years, but I don't think it's gained us anything in the way of image. I think it's hurt. And, you know, the conversation diverged from there, but by the end of it, we ended up actually circling back around to politics because ultimately, you know, he talked about how that's what it's been with every one of these people that he's experienced this sort of thing with. It is an aspect of their behavior that grows out of the narrative that they've chosen to believe in. And because they've gotten so invested in this narrative, they keep getting invested in it further. I'm going to say this, and it's going to be a hot take. Neoliberalism is every bit as sinister and poisonous an idea as fascism. They are every bit the same, in the way that they are pervasive, and in the way that once you get in their grip, it is very hard to wiggle your way out. You really have to go through some deep, deep, personally effective shit to learn that liberals are not your friends. If you're in that, if you're a voting liberal, you really have to get to a hard fucking place before you admit, you know what? They're not my friends. This is not the country of a bunch of progressives and fucking liberals, like true liberals. Like, this is not a country full of fucking leftism. Aw, thank you too. Thank you to Riley Weston. I appreciate that $2. What is this 50% change for Americans? Asking as a Brazilian myself. What will it change for Americans? So it'll probably increase the price of coffee here in America, because Brazil is the world's leading supplier of coffee. So as a coffee drinker myself, I'm literally drinking an iced coffee right now. As a coffee drinker myself, I'm not looking forward to that. Outside of that, I don't know. Like, I don't know what other products come from Brazil, so I don't know exactly what market effects to forecast it'll have. I'll have to read up more on the issue. But I know for a fact that Brazil is one of the world's leading suppliers of coffee, if not the world's leading supplier of coffee. So we are almost certain to see, a 50 cent, maybe $1, I'm saying like probably per pound increase in the price of coffee here in America, if not more. Yeah, I hate this is funny. Yeah, yeah, I hate what he's been doing too, but at least I'm avoiding the draft for my transition. Sis, me too. One of the few good things, right, about being trans under the Trump administration is that there is absolutely no risk of our asses being sent out to war. And that's coming as a person who was legitimately considering joining the Navy last year, And to all the dumb fucks that are going to say, but you're fat, how would you do that? I've actually lost 40 pounds in the last 6 months from the last time I weighed out. Although I've been gaining some of it back lately because I've been dealing with a big pain issue in my ankles, which fucking sucks because I way prefer to be up and around and moving about, and I get very easily depressed when I can't do much, so it kind of sucks. And yeah, like, I'm fat not from a lack of activity, but from an overindulgence in calories. And I guess a lot of my modern weight is probably from eating fast food mostly for 2 years. Bad idea. Don't do it. Not good for you. But yeah, no, it's great not being like even in the running for that sort of thing. Like, there's just no danger of it. I did see some shit missing last time I went grocery shopping. Oh, dude. I feel like shit is just, maybe this is just what happens. Amelia, I think me and you, I said your name so weird right then. Whatever, I'm high. But me and you are about the same age, I think. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to notice shit just happening again, and like similarities from times gone by, Like this WMD talk in Iran literally just reminds me of the shit I grew up hearing about Iraq. And yeah, I've noticed that too. Not a giant abundance of things, but yeah, there's been 2 or 3 times now that I've gone to get baby formula, and our formula is just not there. They're just straight up out. Just none of it to be found. And, well, we're on Wix, so our baby is not drinking bespoke fucking baby formula with fucking organic ingredients and shit. He drinks Enfamil. So this is something that should not be experiencing any sort of shortages. I mean, it's the stuff civilizations are built on, literally. Modern civilizations are built on ideas like baby powder, Not baby powder, but formula powder. Made 300K a year yet? No, Cameron. And you realize I probably never will, right? Didn't we talk about how you were born into, like, insanely more privilege than I am? Like, I don't even know why you're surprised by this, Cameron. I do appreciate, though, that you come back to my streams. It tells me that you find me interesting in some way. And I am way too vain not to take that as a compliment. So. Okay, you morons have to be moderated more heavily. We got to do 1 minute subscriber mode, and I may bump it up if shit continues to be unreadable in this chat. I'm going to ask you guys to think, like, rub a couple of brain cells together before you hit the enter button. It's really not difficult. I swear to God, you'll feel so much better if the shit that I read out loud that you guys say in here makes a lick of fucking sense. You'll literally feel a million times better. Uh-oh, we have to be put in timeout. Yeah, collective timeout, like a fucking kindergarten class. Because like a kindergarten class, 10% of you are behaving. You're sitting at the table, nice and orderly. You're working on your well, probably not homework in preschool, but, you know, you're working on your drawings or whatever. And the other 90%, because, like I had to go to the bathroom or something, I've come back, and the other 90% is basically doing the toddler equivalent of a prison riot. So I've got to quell the crowd somehow. This is basically me shooting beanbags at you guys. This is basically me just like sending tear gas in to disperse the crowd. Right-wingers are well familiar with those sorts of tactics, right? You guys should know what this is like. You know the drill. Come on. I know you're not I know you're not used to having it used against you, but you know, like turnabout is fair play, and here we are. All aboard the short bus, exactly. Dumb motherfuckers, dude. Can you help me with my coloring? Yeah, Jimmy, I can. Come on over here, bud. What kind of crayon we using? Free Daddy and R. Kelly? Yeah, buddy. I don't fucking know. Free everybody, dude. Fuck prisons. Fuck borders. Fuck prisons. Nah, dude. Don't free R. Kelly. He's a bad guy. But you know who we can free? Free Melly. Because there was no shame to his game. You know what? If you confess to murder with a beautiful song, you shouldn't be held liable for it. Wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. AK-47s. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta respect somebody who just comes out there and is like, by the way, YouTube, people in the chat, I'm joking! Savannah, I'm literally joking. Chill out. Chill out. No, Savannah's okay. I don't like, whatever. She's providing a counterpoint. She's fine. I'll unban her. Savannah's never heard of sarcasm. Yeah, exactly. She's never heard of, like, comedic exaggeration. My bad. You're fine, Ignar. You've got the fucking sensitive trigger because, like, every other comment is a dumb bug. But Savannah, like, I haven't seen her, like, saying any, like, other than just saying MAGA, which, whatever, you know? Like, people are gonna have their slogans. I got my slogans, too, you know? Like, it's chill. It's chill, whatever. Trump's doing what's best for America. I totally disagree. I couldn't disagree more, but we can talk about why if you want. Like, what is your favorite thing about what Trump is doing? Like, what's your favorite Trump policy? You look exactly like Peter Griffin pretending to be a girl. Do I? Unoriginal dumb fuck. Yeah, it is kind of like a hidden rule of the channel that Peter Griffin comments are an instant delete, but that's just because it's like a meme. And as near as I can tell, the only reason why is because I've got a double chin and I wear glasses. That's it. Does Peter Griffin even wear glasses? Actually, come to think of it. They're breaking through the lines. Give them hell, mods. Okay, all right. Well, hey, sometimes you want to include more people, but sometimes you just got to accept that some folks are going to be dumbasses. So you know what? The timeout's got to be longer. The kindergarten class apparently needed even more OC spray. So, there we go. The short bus just got a little shorter. Yeah. Oh, shit. I might ask a billion questions because I'm texting someone important, but hi, babes. That's okay. Hi, Hope. I actually look like Peter Griffin. TBH, I have the chin. Dude, that's the thing, is like I have the double chin, but I don't really feel like, other than that, I look a whole lot like good old Peter. But at this point I'm just sick of seeing it said in the chat. Like, if people could be funny about it, that's one thing, but I have yet. It's been a month since I've read one of these stupid Peter Griffin jokes that's actually made me chuckle a little. Like, you look like trans Peter Griffin is like the most basic version of it. It's like the most basic fucking version. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it anymore. I've riffed on it as much as I can, and so now we just ban it out of the community. Unless you're really funny with it. If you're really funny with it, like if I read your comment after you've been banned and you're really funny about it and you make me laugh, I'll unban you. But everyone is entitled to their opinions. Some opinions are wrong. Yeah, I mean, some opinions, like, that's the thing. Everybody's got an opinion. Like, opinions are like assholes, right? Everybody's got an opinion and they all stink. And what that means is that not every, it sounds like really contrarian and stupid, but what I take it to mean is that every human on earth has something about their philosophy and their way of looking at things that you would find reprehensible and really negative and toxic and harmful to the world. And every human being also has things about their philosophy that you would probably agree with. That's true of every fucking person on the planet. Name me a person for whom that's not true, and I'll tell you about how Hitler was very kind to animals. Name me a person for whom that was not true, and I'll tell you how Stalin was kind to people that he partied with and was said to be really good at entertaining. Name me a person for whom that's not true, and I'll tell you about how the Shah of Iran was purportedly incredibly generous to people that were close to him, friendship-wise. None of these people were good dudes, but all of them had something human in them, and that's true of every fucking person that the false duopoly of American politics has taught everybody to hate, right? So if you're like on the far left, like I am, most people in my position look at members of the voting right, so I'm talking regular working class people that vote Republican, as being like just a lost cause. And that's fucking retarded. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. Because while I might have only one or two things in common with Hitler, every Republican I've ever met I had like 10 or 15 things in common with. Between geography and hobbies and outlooks on life on particular issues and, jokes that we found funny and things like that. I could list off a fucking laundry list of things that I found in common with every one of these people. We have to bring back the sense that everyday Americans are not the fucking enemy. We have to adopt that in ourselves, and I'm not just talking to the left either. The conservatives are going to have to learn to adopt some of this same policy too. I think you need a Bible. You would be shocked, my friend. I actually own a variety of Bibles. I was going to close that window, but actually I think I'll leave it open. The rain sounds nice through it. Yo, it sounds like the storm's coming. Oh, the storm's here, baby. The storm's here. Conservative here, I agree. Well, thank you for the $1.99. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear that people agree with me out there. I'm glad to hear that this is not some wild idea from afar. In my mind, this is a really fucking simple thing. In my mind, this is the most important step that we can take towards getting done some of the things that need to get done in America. Because when it comes right down to it, we can fight all day long about these social issues, but I think the biggest and most harmful thing that Trump is doing, honestly, is less of a social issue and more of it's a social issue that reveals a bunch of economic issues. And I think it's a good jumping off point for advocacy, because mass deportation just ain't the way, it's just ain't the way. And that's not according to me, that's according to the National Home Builders of America Association, or whatever it is, the National Association of Home Builders. Their spokesperson issued a statement at one point saying that mass deportations are not the way to go about it. You do need good immigration policy, but mass deportations are not a good idea, that they will hurt the construction workforce, because 34% of the people working in the American construction industry are undocumented. And when they go through periods like this, when a particular political party is using them as a football and is actively hunting them down and shit, when that happens, they get exploited even more by the workplaces that they work for. Their lot in life gets way worse, and ultimately, what all of it reveals is a problem in, like, the American economic structure. The fact that America has normalized demonizing regular working class people so much, to the point that we now look at Mexican people that work in farms and factories as lesser than us, just because they didn't come through here legally or whatever. Because in a lot of their cases, they came here legally and just overstayed. A lot of them came here legally, and if America had an easy path towards naturalization, they would be citizens by now. But America makes it difficult. We love immigrant labor, but we do not love treating immigrants like fucking people. And that is like a social issue entirely born out of, like, economic oppression. It's just another way that corporations and the rich people that own and control them are driving people like you and me apart by demonizing them, by making them out to be the enemy. This is the trickle-up effect. Legislation will affect you financially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We need to understand we are in an interconnected ecosystem. Oh, dude, and that's true, by the way, not just of the actual ecosystem that we're in, but that's true of the political and, like, legal ecosystem that we occupy as citizens of a country. I've been waiting my 5 minutes to say that I just found your stream randomly, but I love all the stuff you're saying so far. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Some people find me quite controversial. People on the left and the right. People on the left think I am way too accommodating to people on the right, and people on the right, obviously, the regular undercurrent of, like, oh, this crazy communist, woo, Hold on. Let me try and fix it. Hopefully that fixes. I reset my connection and I closed all my apps, so hopefully that improves things. Let's see. Are we back yet? Things looks better now. Yay! Genuine question about immigration. I do not like the methods Trump is using to deport people, but I am in favor of mass deportation in itself. I was wondering if you liked Biden border. Well, when you say Biden border, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people on the right grousing about how Biden let millions of people through the border, but I've just never seen any strong evidence of it. Like there was an incident of a major crossing during some, like, but I thought that was like during some natural disasters or some shit. I don't remember it that well. So, like, when it comes to Biden's border policy, I honestly remember it being more like Trump's first term. Like, there's this famous quote from Kamala Harris that I quote all the time. Do not come. Our policy has not changed. We will continue to enforce our borders. America will remain a secure country. Do not come. And when you look at how many people were staffed down, like in the, well, let me tell. I'll give you guys the stats to the best effect that I can, but I'll also tell you guys a little personal story about the border during Biden's administration. So, as far as I know, Biden didn't fire anybody from ICE or detach anybody from the border. In fact, my understanding is that Biden actually increased ICE hiring. He just did it in a way more staggered way. He didn't publicize it, and he didn't make it, he didn't give them as much money as Trump has given them to do the things that they're doing. But I'll tell you guys a little bit of a story about the U.S.-Mexico border during the Biden administration. So I used to live in a minivan, and I used to travel all over the country, living on the back of my guitar and my voice. And when I was living in Mexico, I found this beautiful little town called Ruidoso. And about 65 miles southwest, I think, of Ruidoso is a town called Las Cruces. Thank you, Chris Conroy, for the £2. That's kind of you. That's kind of you, mate. Oh, wait, no. That's €2. That's not pounds at all. Oh, well. Corny British accent aside. Good internet connection? Yay. Yay! What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, if I remember correctly, about 65 or so miles southwest of Ruidoso is a town called Las Cruces. And in order to get to Las Cruces, you've got to go down this highway, because you go through Ruidoso, you go through down south and to Alamogordo. Interestingly enough, the site of the nuclear research facility that developed the Trinity nuclear bomb tests, and real close to the range where they tested them too. Ooh, I got another super chat. $1.99. DNA testing was abandoned, which was the issue, in my opinion. DNA testing for what, though? DNA testing for what? Am I still buffering? Am I still buffering? Can someone tell me if I'm still buffering before I continue this story uselessly? Okay, cool. To ensure sponsors were actually family? Oh. Well, here's the thing. Me and you probably have a different idea of what our immigration policy should be, but I'll get to that in just a minute. Simulacrum. We can have a whole argument about that, but I do want to finish the story. So, if you're traveling all the way to Las Cruces, and you're going back from Las Cruces towards Alamogordo, you will have to, I don't know if they do it all the time, because the way it was set up looks like it's something that they could take down and move, and you don't have to go through it. But when I went through it, pretty much every time I ever went from Las Cruces to Alamogordo, I had to pass through a U.S. customs, fucking immigration and customs enforcement checkpoint, where a soldier-looking dude would come up, like somebody that looks basically like a cross between like a soldier and a police officer. You know, like they look more ready for action than like a regular cop, because they're not all loaded down with shit, but they have a handgun instead of a rifle, that kind of thing. So these like fucking scary looking dude, you know, especially because, like, if you think about it, I feel like it was the kind of dude, by the way, that would not be scary if he had not been the type of uniform he was and like had the attitude he did. So good on him, I guess. But flashlight in the middle of the day at one time, which was the weirdest thing to me. Flashlight, like looking you in the eyes, asking how many passengers you have with you, even when it's fucking obvious. Because I drove a minivan, and literally you could like look back in there and see there's not a pile of things big enough to be a person, you know. asking me how many passengers I have and if I have any illegal drugs in the car and all this other shit. Like 2 or 3 minutes of questioning, and then, they look through the car windows with a flashlight, take the dog around, and then if all of that clears, then they let you go through. And if anything goes amiss according to their fucking unknowable list of rules that they pay attention to, then you get pulled off to the side and fully searched and all that shit, and your name ran and all that shit. So that's what being just near the U.S. border was like during 2021 and 2022. And that was during the first year and the second year of Biden's administration, and I'm sure it never got any better. So we're talking about regular-ass U.S. citizens being questioned just for traveling in America. Literally. Being questioned, interrogated, essentially, like they're a criminal, just for traveling in the United States. So no, I don't think Trump and Biden were all that far apart on immigration, frankly. Bro, I don't know I don't know if you know about this, but the First Amendment guarantees my right to free expression. I know, it sucks, doesn't it? Because one of the many things that you fought for, right, was the sanctity of the Constitution. And the Constitution literally guarantees my right to be trans. Not directly in that wording, but the First Amendment covers me and every other trans person. That's why the laws regarding our ability to dress and shit, that's why all of the anti-cross-dressing laws and shit that used to exist in the United States, that's exactly how they were challenged. Is as the culture changed, the massive fucking hypocrisy evident in the double standard maintained by having a First Amendment but not letting trans people exist, eventually it became too much for the courts to bear. It became too ridiculous a lie to continue pursuing. And so they admitted that, yes, the provisions of the First Amendment have to be construed to include trans people. That's an inconvenience for some people, but I'm pretty happy about it. DNA testing helps prevent trafficking mainly. Okay, so now that I've told my story, simulacrum. What would you say would be okay, so do you agree that immigration is a necessary part of, not just fulfilling the need of, would you agree that immigration is not just a necessary part of fulfilling the need for labor in America, but also a necessary part of American culture? I just want to establish, because it can be hard sometimes to argue about these things from a standpoint of you've got this one specific idea about it and I've got this response to that idea. It's way better to get an even standing, so I know how you feel about the issue from the start, so to speak. Yes, also can't be a regular comment. That's okay. Hey, I appreciate the super chats. It's really fucking kind of you. That's hey, you can super chat every goddamn thing you say in here, as far as I'm fucking concerned. So yes. Okay. So you agree that immigration is okay. So, do you think there's been too much immigration over the last? When do you think immigration started getting bad? In your words, when do you think we hit critical mass? Because I would argue that the system we've been in, and if you look at the statistics, they back this up. What has basically been happening is a bunch of immigrants come in, a bunch of immigrants get deported. A lot of them come in again, a lot of them get deported. A lot of people who get deported from the U.S. have been deported 3 or 4 times. That's one of those weird statistics that once you learn that it exists, the recidivism rate on deportation, it's a pretty crazy statistic, because what you realize is this policy doesn't seem to be working out on its own, right? So, That's my thesis, is that the way we've been handling immigration over the last 20 years doesn't work. Would you agree with me, Simulacrum? I think if it did work, right, then we would be in a system that reflected that, right? We wouldn't have a bunch of people that have been deported like 7 times. Can say anything. My pregnancy test just hit neg. Yay, Kelly. That's dope. That's dope. Not true. There is a wall that doesn't allow them back in under Trump. I love how Ventus thinks that, like, the minute Trump got elected, bro, the force, like the magic of the gods, started collecting all the bricks from the abandoned buildings in America and bringing them down to Mexico, dude. Bringing them. All the abandoned buildings in Mexico. Bringing them. All the abandoned buildings in China. Bringing them. Building that wall, dude. And overnight, a wall was made where there wasn't one before. How do you explain that, my friend? Because Trump kept building his wall throughout the entire 4 years, and Biden didn't stop building it. So, if anything, we're talking about a bipartisan policy. That's what's called the continuous rightward shift of the Overton window, to where a liberal like Joe Biden is now basically functionally indiscernible from a neoconservative. Yay! Agreed, but we have too much trafficking now. I agree the trafficking is an issue, but a lot of the trafficking that happens when it comes to the U.S. border thing, when it comes to the issue of immigration, as it relates to trafficking as an issue, trafficking is not usually done in that context for the purposes that people associate trafficking with, right? Because when people hear trafficking, they think like trafficking for like sex abuse or something like that, but that's not all that trafficking is. We are sex crime capital now, sadly. Well, that's just not backed up by the statistics, though. If you look at it, sex crimes are down in America just like every other kind of crime is down. I will tell you this, sex crimes get way, way, way more coverage than they used to. That's probably why I'm not trying to like impinge on your intellect or whatever. I'm just saying, like, that's probably why you think that sex crimes are like more common now or something, or like that rate has gone up, because it hasn't. Like, maybe the number of those crimes has gone up, like, as a number, because there's more people. But per capita, as far as I'm aware, the rate of sex crime is actually down over the last 50 years. But the reason why you probably think it's not down is because there's so much media coverage of the issue. It's something that didn't used to get hardly any coverage in the news and in the media, that is now, headline material. No, Google it. Google it now. It's real. Well, if one of my mods want to fact check, you can look up, has violent crime gone up in America over the last 10 years, and see if you can find some statistics on it. Major decline since the 1980s. Rape and sexual assault rates have fallen dramatically, according to the NCVS and FBI. The adjusted rape victimization rate dropped from roughly 2.4 per 1,000. Feels like I gotta... Okay, let me see here. So I'm seeing major decline. Time frame trend 1980s to 1990s, sharp rise in various crimes, early 1990s onward, major crime decrease across categories, 1980s to 2000s, 85% drop in rape/sexual assault, 1933 or 1993 to 2022 is about a 50% drop in sexual violence. Can we agree at least we are the world leading hub for trafficking? I don't really think we are. Unless you're, because when you say trafficking, I can tell you clearly think, right, of sex crime trafficking, but that's not the only kind of trafficking that happens. You have to realize that included in trafficking statistics, unless you are specifying for, like, people who are trafficked exclusively for sexual slavery or something like that, you are also talking about people who are trafficked over the border because they want to be trafficked over the border. Like, trafficking is a crime of moving a human being either against their will or illegally in some other way. It doesn't just have to be against their will. Not everybody who falls in with a coyote is, like, against that, you know? Like, I mean, it's one of those lesser evil situations where they would rather go with the coyote than to risk fucking trying to climb through some of the more inhospitable areas of the U.S.-Mexico border that are not covered by the border fence and the border wall or whatever the fuck is down there. Because it is different in places. Because it's a fucking Swiss cheese wall. Because a fucking wall is not a good border solution. Anyway, I could go on about that for a million years. But for someone in that position, they go along with the coyotes knowing that they're going to be, locked up in a room for a week at the end of the process while they, basically while their family is, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm fucking looking for. Anyway, they go into that process knowing it's going to happen because it's a lesser than fucking two evil situation, and it's fucked up. It's fucked up, and it's a situation that only exists because we have such a hardline, hawkish position on our border and immigration. The U.S. is actually nowhere near the worst for trafficking. Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's true. It would not surprise me if the U.S. is one of the lowest places when it comes to trafficking statistics and shit, because there are so many other countries that are just this side of pirate countries, and. The U.S. has elite trafficking, not everyday people for the most part, CPS kids, immigrants, downtrodden families, and people/fams who operate in it. Yeah, I mean, it's not like your everyday fucking average American that is involved in trafficking, and that includes undocumented immigrants. Your everyday average fucking undocumented immigrant is like a fucking orange picker. They work in the agricultural field. Maybe they work in a meat packing plant or something like that. But they work a regular blue-collar job, and they eat regular American food, and go to regular American social events. They got some Mexican shit that they do too, but who cares? Who cares? America is a place where every culture comes to bloom. America is a place where every culture comes to spread its wings and fly. Should we do DNA testing at the border or where? That's what I don't get, Simulacrum. Where would you do this DNA testing? And, exactly how do we fund it? So you're telling me we got the money to have every single person that wants to come into the United States and work here on a potential path to citizenship. We got to have every single one of them wait at the border for a few months or wait in their home country for a few months while it's confirmed that they're not, what, that their DNA related to the people that they say they're related to, or what? Like, I just feel like this is a process that would add a lot of unneeded complexity to the system. Here's what I would suggest. You know what would really disempower these traffickers? If the United States border was not some heavily militarized place, if it was just a place like it was in the 1960s and 70s that you could just go through with relatively little fanfare. That's what would end these traffickers from having any power. That's what would prevent them from being able to do this. If Mexican people, here's something I think that we should do. United States, Mexico, Canada, and Central America, Schengen area. Make it completely legal for anyone born in any of those countries to work in any of those countries, to live in any of those countries, and to begin the naturalization process in any of those countries, and strip movement between them from having any hindrances. It has made the EU stronger than us. The EU has some of the best infrastructure on the planet. You can see some of the most fucking historical, like you can go on a history tour of Europe and never functionally cross through a traditional border crossing. That's something we could have here. And if we did that, the collective might of our nations, America especially, would be like, we'd be back on top. This is one of those policies that, like, through our collectivization in that way, because America's not going to culturally change, and the right of these countries to set their own laws for what goes on in their country, that's not going to change. All that changes is that now someone born in Mexico has the right to live and work in America if they want to, and has the ability to travel there freely. Somebody born and raised in Canada can come down to America and live and work here, start naturalization here, visit here super easily. Fahim Muhammad owns 13 plus acres on the border. Does he now? Who the fuck is that? I have to say, as a proud American, I'm disappointed our human trafficking has gotten so pitiful. What happened to being number one? I know, right? The one statistic you'd think we'd master. But no, if you want to get rid of traffickers, you're not going to do that. You're not actually going to get rid of traffickers if all you do is militarize the border. Because people who want to traffic in other human beings illegally are going to fucking figure out a way to do it. They're going to figure out whatever the new system is and figure out how to abuse that system. Honestly, all that this is frustrating for me, right? Because it's one of those things where there's only one good solution. Because as long as America's border remains a heavily militarized thing, and as long as America remains an unfriendly place for undocumented immigrants that don't necessarily like speak the language super well, or as long as America is an inhospitable place for people without paperwork and shit, as long as they can be exploited, but it remains a more opportune place than their country of origin, there will remain a widespread human trafficking problem in regards to working class fucking Mexican and Central American people that want to come to America. Because if nothing else, these coyotes will just take advantage of the fact that they're the only people, that they'll just change the nature of the racket. So instead of it being a situation where the coyote has them, like, sequestered away in the back of a truck or something, hidden inside of a box of what looks like watermelons or some shit. Instead of that, the coyote has them. Um, Instead, they like have them sign up for what looks like a get to America easy kind of package or whatever. And then when they get to America, the cycle just fucking begins again. So they just get them through a legal port of entry, and then take advantage of the fact that that person has no fucking familiarity with America, and most of America is like either culturally against undocumented immigrants, or it's just unhospitable to them by virtue of our legal system. The exploitation of people will not end just because you make the border a worse place to cross. The only fucking solution for this is some sort of United States, Mexico, Canada, Schengen area. Read last comment, but just wondering while that Borderland. Michael Jackson, head of security, right out of college, the first year out of college when he died, and now Diddy's head of security. Rock the vote, very close to Biden administration who encouraged kids without parents to enter. Interesting. So you're saying that there might be like a Biden associate. Here's the thing, though. Even if there was some Biden associate that's got land on the U.S.-Mexico border and helped some families get across, and this doesn't sound it doesn't sound too fantastical to be true, and I definitely see why it makes the mind wonder. But we also know just from the fucking statistics that the vast majority of people here in America illegally, quote unquote, are here not because of crossing the border illegally, but because of visa overstays. Like that's the main way that people get in. It's by basically going through legally, and then it's basically them going through legally and then overstaying. So it's like, even if it is technically kind of a problem that happened, I think it's a problem that is ultimately derivative of a larger problem. In this case, the fact that we've got a heavily militarized border that is difficult and unappealing to cross, and an immigration system that is arcane and difficult to navigate. I ain't saying LOL, just wondering, just to be clear. Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, it's interesting for sure, Kelly. I don't know either. Who knows, right? Who the fuck knows what's going on with that land on the U.S.-Mexico border? But it's worth considering. It's worth talking about at least, right? What needs to be done is not to go after the immigrants, but instead go after the economic exploiters who hire them for pennies as a pseudo serf. Or, well, okay, you really can't address the problem if you do like fuck these corporations up, right? Which I do think should happen. I think the corporations that are trying to enable this sort of like wage organizing, undercutting, kind of like you said, pseudo serf class is probably not a good thing. In fact, I know it's not a good thing, and I think it's something that we should prosecute companies for doing, but ultimately they're just going to keep doing it as long as it's something that they can make more money doing and then occasionally paying for the prosecution of than they can just paying people regular wages, which is why I think that we need to fundamentally undercut them by making it so that there is absolutely no excuse, right? There's no excuse because now they have to let these people file an I-9 and shit, right? And then at that point, if we do something like that, that's when I want the crackdown to happen, right? I want the crackdown on these exploitative companies and exploitative agribusiness conglomerates and shit. I want the fist to come down on them after we've given immigrants the legal right to work in this country on an unlimited basis. After we've given them that, then I want the fucking hammer to come down on companies that try to keep working people under the table. No more. No fucking more. Why spend 147 billion for ICE when we can spend 40 billion on litigation on these companies? Not only that, but we can spend 40 billion on that and then 20 billion totally fucking reforming our immigration system and our border, making it a place that is like, I don't want to say super inviting to cross. It doesn't have to be a fucking playground, but it should be a place that people don't feel afraid to cross. It should be a place that it is inviting ultimately to come across, and the immigration system in America should make it easy for a person who wants to come here, work here, start a family here, buy goods here, participate in the economy here. It should be easy for them to do those things. It should not be something that's like hidden from them or that they're excluded from. Corporations want to use human rights to hide the fact that they only want to use immigrants as essentially a slave labor force. Don't go after the immigration system, go after these companies. I mean, you have to go after both. You have to go after both. Like, the thing is, these immigrants are not coming in because these companies want them as a labor force. These companies want them as a labor force because these immigrants are heavily incentivized to come in by the conditions of their home country. It's not that America is a particularly hospitable place for America, or I'm sorry, it's not that America is a particularly hospitable place for undocumented immigrants. It's that America is a more hospitable place for an undocumented immigrant than their home country is for a fucking legal citizen. That's the fucking thing. That's the incentive. And these companies know that. These companies know that these people are poor, hungry, and desperate in most cases, and will work for functionally nothing. If they didn't have the money to come in legally and wait and do all that shit, what's the chances that they have the money to pursue you with any litigation? What's the chances they have what are the chances that they have the ability to organize as a united force? And so yeah, 100% that they want to use them, to exploit them, and to use them as like a wage undercutting thing and a cost saving measure. But the fact of it is, they deserve human rights just as much as anybody else, and the need that drove them to come to this country is not going to go away because we eliminate the ability for these countries to hire these folks under the table. They are still going to want to come to America, and I still think we should let them in because this is a country of immigrants, fundamentally. They wouldn't be able to, though. If people, that's the thing, Matthew, if people knew for a fact that they could just get across easily, cost-free, and come work in America, and, like, because that's the thing, is, like, the Southwest and Texas, and a lot of, especially the Southwest, but even parts of Texas have places where, like, a lot of the names of the streets and shit, and a lot of the names of the towns are already in Spanish, and a lot of the, there's a lot of like Mexican-owned businesses down there, especially in the Southwest. I mean, New Mexico is basically Mexico. New Mexico is basically Mexico with a way higher percentage of white people and English-speaking people. That's it. But that's the only difference. Otherwise, and New Mexico has a lot more temperate places than Mexico does. Mexico's pretty much just got a few mountains in the western side of the country. New Mexico's got, whole chunks of it that are incredibly temperate. But Other than that, there's not much of a difference between the two places. So, if we legalized immigration through the U.S. border, if we made it something like the Schengen area in the EU, we would basically cut these cartels off at the hip, right? We would cut their legs off effectively. New Mexico has Walter White. New Mexico does have Walter White, and I will tell you, I have never watched Breaking Bad, but what I know of their portrayal of Albuquerque is apparently quite accurate. I'll tell you this much, y'all. I traveled all over the United States when I was living in my minivan. There was only one city I was ever in where I was accosted by somebody that I legit was gonna fight me, that I was legit gonna have to use my pepper spray on or something like that. One fucking time that has happened, and it was at a fucking Motel 6. Corporate greed needs to stop before open borders happen. See, I'm of the opinion that these are goals we can pursue at the same time. I think these are goals we can pursue at the same time. When it comes to corporates abusing an open border system, I really do think that like that's the thing, dude. Corporations already abuse the existing systems. They're not going to stop it. There's no system we're going to make that they aren't going to abuse. And I don't think that, well, they're going to abuse the system is necessarily a good reason to not implement an otherwise good idea, because they're going to abuse it anyway. You're right. Corporate greed does need to be addressed, but I don't think like that's such a fucking hard thing to get to without addressing a few things in society first, which is why, corporate greed is not on my list of 5 policies that I think a potential independent or third-party movement should bring to its mass movement in Washington, D.C. and Wall Street. I think that should, it's something that we need to address, but it's something that we can only address after we've put people in a position to see why leftism works, to see why, reappropriation of wealth works. Corporate greed, big government hatred, the far right needs to focus more on the ones wanting to strip mine national parks than the trans community, immigrant community, etc. It's not these communities that have made the cost of living a hellscape. Oh, 100% Clover Sessions. It's not people like me who have made the cost of living a hellscape. It is people who stand to benefit from making the cost of living a hellscape. It's people who stand to benefit from making America a place that it's hard to live in, a place that it's hard to afford, a place that it's hard to just justify moving here if you're not someone who's massively exploited. If you're massively exploited, yeah, America seems like a pretty good deal. But there are very few regular-ass, working-class, skilled tradespeople that decide independently to move to America. In fact, it's the other way around. America actually has a serious brain drain problem, where people will finish their doctorates and their residencies here in America and then start applying for jobs in Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, etc. And sometimes they have to do some remedial education when they get over there, but they're accepted and they're able to move over there. And it's happening with engineers, it's happening with doctors, it's happening with psychologists and scientists of all stripes. It's happening with all sorts of fucking different industries and positions. And it's something that America really hasn't been able to contend with. But I think it's a shameful fact about our country that the only people we attract as immigrants anymore are people who are desperately exploited by their home countries, and we desperately exploit them here. But honestly, it's pretty much on par with America. Just so you know, America has always taken you're poor, you're hungry, and you're sick. You're tired, yearning masses to breathe free. But the way they are targeted now is unique. The way they are targeted for removal and for deprival of civil rights now, that's unique. While they divide, most people where I live can't even afford to leave the state. Oh, dude, 100%. That's one of the sad things about where I live too. I live in Mississippi, and most people in Mississippi have never left Mississippi. Most people who have left Mississippi have never gone farther than Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, or Georgia, or Florida, maybe. There's like a 3-state radius around Mississippi that most people in Mississippi who have been out of Mississippi have been to. And even those people are not that, like, they're, I would say, maybe 35% of the population, maybe 40, 45%, hard to tell. But as far as people who have been outside of that range and who've been all over the country, people like me, I would say it's less than 10%. Because most people in Mississippi can't afford to get the fuck up out of Mississippi. They can't afford to leave Mississippi to visit, let alone to move somewhere. And people are stuck in that sort of desperate poverty all over the Deep South. The flood of illegal immigrants during the Biden administration was unique. I don't really think it was. Because, yeah, immigrants came into the country during Biden's administration, but he also deported more people than any other president. Like, in the 4 years that he deported more people than any other president, from what I understand. So, bro, there's nothing in Mississippi? Trust me, I know. Trust me, I know. That's the sad part about it. I mean, there is stuff here in Mississippi. I'm not even going to lie. There's a lot of Civil War shit here, if you're into that. If you're into American history, right? And I kind of am. I kind of think that American history is important because you have to know where you've been if you're going to know where you go. Where you're go. You have to know where you've been if you want to know where you're going to go, right? Or where you can go. Or where you should go. It's good to know history for that reason. And I'm pretty fascinated with American history. But if you're not, there's not a whole lot to do in Mississippi. Almost everything worth seeing in Mississippi is history related. And it's sad too, because Mississippi is the birthplace of jazz music. Mississippi is the birthplace of America's music. We brag about it all the fucking time. Elvis Presley was born here. We invented the music you all listen to now. We invented the precursors to it. We invented that jammy, jazzy kind of style that you guys all love so much. And we brag about it, but what do we do to celebrate that heritage? As near as I can tell, not a goddamn thing. As near as I can tell, not a goddamn thing. Some municipalities have like music festivals and shit like that, but very few municipalities have like as heavy a focus on American music as we could. And Mississippi, I genuinely believe, is a place that, man, if we just did some shit right, we could become one of the best vacation destinations in America, despite the fact that we're a buggy hellhole for about 3 months out of the year. I'll tell you, for about 3 months out of the year, you don't want to visit Mississippi. July, August, and June, for the most part, you really, not the kind of place you really want to visit. But you know what? People visit Florida all fucking year long. It hasn't stopped them yet. The only reason Mississippi doesn't have that is because Mississippi doesn't care to have that. Because Mississippi is ran by people who don't care about Mississippi being a nice, livable place for everyone. They care about it continuing to generate profits for them and their family. They see Mississippi as one big plantation because they're all descendants of fucking plantation owners. Every state has their own heritage that needs to be... Oh, Beefy Queef is here. Nice. Every state has their own heritage that needs to be pushed forward. After 10 years, I'm tired of this division. Mosquito Central. Oh, yeah, it's Mosquito Central, but it wouldn't even matter that it was. It wouldn't even matter that it was Pig Central if Mississippi was willing to engage in some shit that would help tourism here. Like, man, this is such a specific topic. I'm sure a lot of people aren't interested in it, but, like, Mississippi could start filling in many fucking potholes and actually improving its roads, bringing them up to national standards. Mississippi could massively reduce the amount of stroads that go through its fucking cities, because right now that's a major problem. Pretty much every city in Mississippi has a big old stroad running right through the middle of it, making it an unappealing fucking place for everybody that isn't a dumb motherfucker in a car. Mississippi could honestly, Mississippi could build way more resorts and shit. Mississippi has an incredibly high water table. Fun fact, right? So Mississippi, if it wanted to, could basically do the opposite of what the Dutch do, right? So the Dutch will reclaim land by filling it in, right? And like filling in land that used to be full of water and pumping out that water and dispensing of it to the ocean, right? Mississippi could do the opposite of what the Dutch do. Mississippi could make like artificial lakes. You can build an artificial pond or lake anywhere you want in Mississippi. Dig a deep enough hole in Mississippi and it will fill up with standing water. And that water will just never evaporate unless you have like 2 or 3 dry years. So, with that in mind, Mississippi could very easily have a big old, like a giant network of different resorts and shit that are built adjacent to lakes, or that build their own fucking little private lake or whatever. Like, you could have this sort of like latent tourism. There's a bunch of natural areas that could be like improved upon and made into more appealing places to go to. Even the places where history is celebrated, the infrastructure to go visit those places is just not very appealing. Like, I can tell you so many fucking larger cities in Mississippi that there are reasons to visit there, but the reasons to visit there are just not, like, people don't give enough of a fuck about them to keep them up, as near as I can tell, and to do the work that it takes to make them interesting and, like, eye-catching. Alt-right people or leftists that listen to their dad too much, we can pull them. Oh, dude. Yeah, I 100% agree. They almost say class-conscious shit all the time and then ruin it, but there is hope. I'm going to sound like MAGA guys expect me to right now, but I have to run to the store for almond milk. Yeah, that's fair. Go run to the store for some almond milk. But yeah, people on the far right are totally capable of engaging in class-conscious activism. They're totally capable of making class-conscious arguments. They just don't very often because of, because of deeply held biases or whatever. Because of racism, right? Deeply held biases that prevent them from seeing other human beings as human beings. And ultimately, they just end up playing into the hands of the same rich billionaires that they sometimes end up basically railing against. But they don't seem to, like, they'll talk about how horrible the elites are, but then they'll engage in rhetoric that is at the behest of the elites. Yeah, exactly. Their energy is directed at the wrong place. They've got this class conscious attitude, but they have been told by people in positions of high power and authority and economic status, they've been told by those people that the people they should really hate are the leftists and the trans people and the queer people and the black people and the this and the that. It's never capitalism. It's never the system. The system works fine when everybody in it is okay, when everybody in it is okay by our standards, rather. You know what else sucks? How much the right demonizes the LGBTQ community? Well, yeah, obviously. But, I guess there's no buts. It's one of those things I don't have very much sway over, It's like, I can defend the validity of my identity to them and probably not make much progress. But I feel like if I come at them with some issue that we have some kind of common ground on already, I've got a way better chance of changing somebody's mind, which is why I don't talk about LGBT issues here as much as some other trans content creators do. They're too ignorant to listen anyway? Not in my experience. In my experience, you can find something to like about most people. In my experience, you can find something to like about most people, and it is in those places where you find the sort of common ground that enables people to see one another as human beings again. Ultimately, they can't dehumanize us if they look at us not as weirdos and people that they've been trained to hate, but as their neighbor, as their coworker, as a sibling on this planet. And that's the sort of attitude that I strive to foster here, because I think it is possible. I've seen people demonstrate it. I've seen people get kinder towards trans people with time through exposure. People far right or left are funny to me. I believe in a humanist rights regardless of politics. I mean, I agree with that, but I think as someone who's been accused of being pretty far left myself, that's probably where the sense of camaraderie comes from. Because I understand that I'm kind of part of that little community as well, and I find a lot more in common when it comes to like individual political prescriptions and like axiomatic beliefs and things like that. I find a lot more in common with a far leftist than I do with someone on the far right. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think every far leftist is right about shit, but I'm just saying, in terms of pure commonality alone, you being able to do a trip in a van is more interesting to me than your identity. Should I want that? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that is a way more interesting aspect of my life than the fact that I'm trans, too. And I will say, you say you want it, but there's ups and downs. You have to be prepared for that. Unless you've got some kind of work-at-home job that allows you to earn a decent income while you're on the road. Because if you have that, then you basically ain't got shit to worry about. Honestly, all the things that I would warn someone against only apply if they're doing it like a hippie would, like a bard would. That's how I did it. I traveled the country with my guitar, and I sang on street corners and in downtown areas and in front of restaurants and things like that, and that's how I made my money. That's how I got across the United States. But doing that was a pretty poor way of living in terms of just the amount of money I made. And as a result, I was usually wanting for something. Now, there were certainly plenty of good times where I made, I didn't just make good in terms of money, but I made good in terms of people donating weed and shit like that. And so I was fucking living high on the hog. But there were other times when I just couldn't seem to draw any blood from the stone. And, like, couldn't move for, like, 2 weeks, And finally I got a good day, and I was like, okay, well, I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. I'm doing something else. Bye. That to me is America, the frontier, the voyage, the ability to say, fuck it, we bail. Fuck it, we ball. Yeah, dude. Dude, I will tell you that. It is that, right? There are things about that life that I experienced that I can't help but appreciate because I know no one else will ever experience them. Things like waking up in my van and the sun hasn't quite risen yet and the windows are open or they're cracked and I can hear like the subtle sound of the outside, and then I open my door and I can just hear it all, the highway noise from half a mile away, the sound of people milling around in the parking lot, the sound of wind going around the building and through the cabin of the car. There's a weird sort of appreciation for, I don't know, for the constructed environment, I guess, that comes from living in a van and like living in a situation that requires you to be in touch with the gas station parking lot. 10 years ago, I wouldn't be watching your channel. I'm not sure exactly in what way you mean it, but I think I get what you mean. And yeah, like people change over time. That's what I'm always saying, is that you can't take anyone as a lost cause because people change over time, you know? My father believes Pam Bondi and Kush Patel are covering up the Epstein stuff against Trump's wishes, and he's pissed that they're making him look bad. Oh, dude. I wonder if that's true. I wonder if that's true. I don't think that's true, though. I think Trump is covering it up. I think that Trump is covering up the Epstein shit because he knows he's on it. And he knows that if anyone does get a hold of that shit, that they're gonna cover it up. Or I'm sorry, he knows that if it's not covered up, that anyone who gets a hold of that shit and disseminates it widely, they're gonna fucking, like, there goes his fucking appeal to the alt-right. You know? I mean, already Trump is seeing, like Trump has been seeing, there have been some, like, kinks in the armor already. There have been some chinks in the armor. If you look at it, like, when the U.S. struck Iran, that was a big chink in the MAGA armor. Suddenly, a bunch of people were questioning Trump's policies, and a bunch of people were like, is this guy really anti-war? And then he kind of quelled it by this shaky ceasefire. And now we've got this Epstein files denial. And that isn't looking good in terms of Trump supporters' outlook of it. Some 10 years ago, I was doing the alt-right shit, and after a point, I realized these guys are losers that can't see the bigger picture, hatred for hatred, plus they were all violent meth heads, so yeah. Yeah, that sort of thing does tend to be pretty disengaging from a movement. I would not want to be a part of a movement with violent meth heads. I wouldn't want to be part of a movement with meth heads in general. I have literally met one, yeah, I've met one meth user that I considered to be a normal person with a reasonable personality that was, like, kind and understanding. Don't forget the sale of federal land. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just one of the many fucking things that Trump has done that is, like, anti-working class person, anti-regular person, pro-corporate, pro-conglomerate. By the way, we have made 28.59 today. Thank you guys so much for showing out and support. And if anybody else wants to send a super chat, I will read it when I get right back. Still raining a little. Okay. Whee! Oh. I'm not sure. I thought I was trans at one point, but now I'm not. So maybe I'm fluid. That's the position my partner was in, and you know, that's the way they identify now as gender fluid. And if that's where you end up on your gender journey, that is totally fine. Straight white male, but I'm for it, and it's interesting for me to learn both sides of the story. In Western and European civilization, knowledge is power. That's true. That's true, sweet Dave. Sweet Dave. Now that I've heard that, I instantly think of the Sweet Dave character from Hateful Eight. But yeah, knowledge is power, and knowledge of the inner workings of other countries is a serious kind of power. Phoebes, you can't read a straight sentence for jack shit. No, I can't. And I'm not even going to pretend that I can. You know what? I can't read shit because I'm retarded. But you know what? Y'all still like me anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm trying my best. Shut the fuck up. Male, southern, redneck. Yeah, there you go. Woman, southern, redneck. I don't know. It's interesting when you realize how many different people can be brought together by an interesting conversation with no rules on it. Well, I guess there are some rules in this conversation, but they're very easy to follow and they're very simple. Be readable, be original, be interesting. If you can't follow those rules, well, you're just not going to be a very good participant in chat, and it's just not going to be very fun to have you in here. But if you can, well, please hang out for as long as you want to. I'm autistic, so I'm probably dyslexic too. Can't read. I can read, but it's harder for me to read things out loud because sometimes I'll have to like read back through and correct myself and shit, you know? And that can be kind of hard. People get ready. There's a train a-coming. Don't need no baggage. Just climb aboard. All you need is faith to hear the diesels humming. I like listening to you, Phoebe, while I scroll the hellish place that is my Grinder conversations. Oh no, baby. Yeah, that would be a hellish place, I imagine. I have never tried Grinder, and I don't imagine I ever will. But all those dating apps are hellholes. They're all, bad places where human interaction goes to die. I got new glasses. They're red. Nice. I wish I could get new glasses, but I'm poor. I tried Tinder and it was not for me. I get stuck on sentences because my brain can't focus. Yeah, I'll get stuck on thoughts because my brain focuses too much. Dude, sometimes you'll just see me like drift off into the distance and I'm like, You know, it looks like I'm staring at a person who's not there or something, but I'm really just thinking about something and working something out in my mind. I have a MAGA I can change him fantasy. Oh, dude, the worst type of fantasy to have. The worst type of fantasy to have. Just an I can change him fantasy in general is a bad thing to have, or an I can change her fantasy. You don't ever want to put yourself in the position of having to be the reason why somebody learns to be a fully actualized human being. It's just not a great idea, you know, something to be avoided if you can, because once you put yourself in that position, people will eventually start relying on you in that way, even if at first they resisted your attempt. But two, people I think have a right to be wrong. You know, if somebody wants to be dead wrong on a subject matter, I think it's their right to be. But I do see why some people have that fantasy, and I definitely, you know, I've fallen victim to it myself a few times. Not with that particular thing, but with other things. My bestie is very liberal and she always matches with MAGA guys. Well, that's what we call assortative mating, my friends. I like how you think. So you're saying the left and right can come together if we come together? Um, come together right now over me. Down, down, down. I'll never forget when the guy who killed Bin Laden said he wanted the Biden TikTok Zoomer to be his concubine. Wait, what? Wait, what? Hold the fuck on. Hold on. I'll never forget when the guy who killed Bin Laden said he wanted the Biden TikTok Zoomer to be his. This is some. Okay, this is some MAGA drama I ain't even heard about, bro. This is some shit I ain't even know about. So who is the Biden TikTok Zoomer? Yeah, new lore drop. I feel like I just updated the game. Punched my little brother in the jaw and stole his ramen noodles? Why'd you do that? That was wrong of you, Casey. That was, as my grandmother used to say, mean-headed of you. Dude, that is fucking wild. I cannot believe... Dude, who the fuck is the fucking Biden Zoomer concubine? Who's that? Who's the Biden TikTok Zoomer? Is it somebody I'd know? because he had pizza rolls. That didn't explain anything. Casey, I swear to God, your brain does not work like other human beings. I will ask you for an explanation of some shit, and you'll just, like, I'll ask you, like, Casey, 2 plus 2 is not 5. Why'd you say it was? And you'll be like, because insulation comes in these really big rolls called bats. And it's like, what does that have to do with the price of rice in China? What does that have to do with the price of ramen in Japan? Are you high? No. And I quote, "You're not men, you're boys. If there was no social media, you would be my concubines." It was directed to Harry Session and his friends. What in the actual fuck, dude? Man, that's gay. How the fuck is that not gay? That's gay as fuck. That's I'm sorry, that's gayer than a $3 bill. Why are we making the same face? I don't know. Most far right are just repressed. That's true. A lot of people on the political far right are really just like queer people that have been made to believe by their social circle and the church that they're a part of and all these other communities that they're a part of, that if they come out as gay, they basically sacrifice their right to be a human being. And because they believe these narratives that they've been fed, it's like an endless self-defeating kind of poisonous ideology that gives them constant excuse to deny who they really are. That's why I said earlier that neoliberalism and fascism represent a similar kind of mind poison, and they are both kind of pernicious in the way that once you get them, they make themselves worse. It's almost like people will say of acid and mushrooms that taking them and having good experiences while you take them can open up new neural pathways. You think about things a little bit differently after you take a bunch of acid or after you take a bunch of mushrooms. But I think the same is true for maybe not on as grand a scale, or maybe it takes longer, but I think the same thing is true of a lot of these diseases. Not diseases, but these like mind diseases, I guess you could say. These toxic ideologies that people get into that ultimately are they're anti-human in nature and in outcome, even if they don't outwardly seem anti-human from the right angle or with the right framing. And I think when someone gets ingratiated into one of these like toxic ways of thinking and one of these toxic worldviews, I think it digs itself in. I think it buries itself deep within that person's psyche. And it I think creates new neural pathways that encourage them to think about things in certain ways, in ways that are ultimately anti-human. I love my family, but the second I'm an adult, I'm moving and cutting contact. That's the problem that a lot of trans people have, and it sucks that you're in that position as well. I mean, I was basically disowned by my grandparents after I came out as trans. Now, luckily, both of my parents are supportive. But when it comes to my grandparents, I'll probably never have another conversation with my grandparents, and that sucks because while my grandmother was pretty cruel to me when I was a kid, I love my grandma, honestly, and or as I call her, my nana. I love my nana, and I wish that she wasn't the way she is because her and my mom are why I love cooking to this day. Her and my mom, because my mom is an amazing cook, but my Nana was actually a professional cook at one time. And so my Nana knew like more recipes and had like a bit of a wider, more expressive cooking language, or at least did back then. Nowadays, my mom's really come into her own with that sort of thing, and she makes all kinds of new recipes. But, for the longest time, my mom had like, 20, 25 things that she would cook, and she would like cycle through those things. Not a whole lot of variety in them. Now I would say that there's like, 50 or so meals that cycle slowly but surely through what we eat in terms of dinners. And I really wish that I still had contact with her. And my grandpa, my papa, was like instrumental in me picking up the guitar and in me continuing to learn it. And it's one of the things that we bonded over. Once I learned guitar, me and him could play together, and it was really fun. And I miss that. And now that I have a son, it's so fucking sad to me that I'm not going to get to enjoy that. And I don't know why. I don't know why they're not interested in meeting their great-grandson. I don't know why I'm telling you guys about this, frankly, but it's just sad to me. It's really sad to me. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, but it just sucks. And it sucks to hear that happening to more trans people. I'm sorry, I'm bi, and my grandpa told me he would kill me if I came home with a woman. I don't understand how he could say that and also love me. That is really fucking sad. That is just tragic. So yeah, I mean, it's not even just trans people. It's queer people broadly that face this sort of bigotry from their caretakers, from the people that are supposed to love and care for them and protect them. They instead are offering to literally murder them on account of who they like, on account of what they are, all because they've been fed a bunch of bullshit. A big old bag of bullshit about how these people are monsters and gross and they're this and they're that. The queer equivalent to blood libel. Decades of it in these people's minds. I'm really sorry that you have to go through that. Family is family no matter what. That's how I feel too. Frankly, like, I don't care if they really fucking believe in it or whatever. I just want them to continue having conversations with me and to not disrespect me to my face in terms of my name or like gender markers or whatever. But, I'm not going to get that, and they don't even want to have a conversation with me not on that basis. So fuck it. Unfortunately, that is the fact. I was racist, sexist, fascist. It was my father who pulled me away from that. I thank him every day. I was nearly dumb enough to go to Charlottesville. Evil ideology. Oh, dude. Clover sessions. That is fucking nuts. So you were part of the alt-right at the height of the alt-right then. That was at the height of the alt-right's power, in my opinion. I think now the alt-right has been, well, I think maybe it's been reduced in public presence, and maybe in some ways it's just become more pernicious. I think maybe I would have to have some numbers to know that for sure. But it definitely seems like the alt-right was gaining a lot of steam in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Oh, what's up, Jareth? Family is blood. Family is who you're with. Who you're saying family isn't blood. Yeah, I tend to agree, but it also sucks when you have somebody that you grew up with and that you consider pretty, like, I don't know, pretty important, non-trivial to your raising. It sucks when that person then turns on you and decides they want nothing to do with you. Because, dude, I'm just going to say it. I would love nothing more than to share some recipes with my Nana. I would love nothing more than to show her how far I've come. Because, boy, I can make some fucking delicious shit. I can make some amazing fucking shit. Like, my mashed potatoes are to die for, bro. Like, my mashed potatoes are to die for. And I ain't gonna even tell you guys the recipe, because I ain't gonna give away my secrets, goddammit. No, I don't know. I'll tell you guys if you want to know. But, or maybe I should start posting recipes for my members. Maybe that's something I could do. It's a weird membership perk, but You know, why not? Maybe I should do that if I start making food content. Who knows? Keep in mind, I was barely out of high school. No excuses, but an explanation. It hurts. That person who says they will always be there but fall short because of who someone is. Yeah, it definitely does hurt. But yeah, it's really interesting that you were involved in the alt-right at that time, because that was a time of massive power for the alt-right. So it's interesting that you were involved at that time. And yeah, barely out of high school does explain it a bit, because like you are so fucking impressionable when you're in those young years. I mean, you're the period of your life between, like, I would say 14 and 24 might be some of the most formative years that a human being goes through. That's not to say you can't change later on in life. You can, and plenty of people do. But most of the formative things that will happen to you, and the things that will fundamentally shape your worldview, will happen in those years. I mean, it's true of me. Everything, when I look back on the things that really showed me what humanity is and what I believe about the world, I look back at things that happened in that age range. I was 21 and 4 months, I think. I was 21 and 4 months when I came out as trans. No, no, that's not true. It would have been like 21 and 9 months or something like that. So I was almost 22 when I came out as trans. I was like I was about 22 and a half when I started traveling. Um, let's see. I got off the road in 2023, so I would have been, yeah, so I kept traveling until a few months after I turned 25. And a lot of the things I look back on when it comes to my personal philosophy and things like that, I look back on things like me traveling and things like my teenage years. I love right-wing people who see the light and become lefties. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, no, 100%. You have to have room in the movement for people that don't come from a super lefty household or whatever. Yeah, closer, but pastime and spring revenge allows for grass to grow around the old bodies and for the rivers to rise and hide the younger bodies. Do what? The average brain doesn't stop developing until 25, so that checks out. Yeah, I mean, that's why I think those years are so formative, right? Is because those are the years where you start getting exposed to the adult world, and your reactions to it start becoming relevant, because you're going to remember them for a really long time, because your brain is basically rounding out the edges. And so, like, those years are critically important. That's why, that's one of the reasons why the education system wants to funnel young people into college. Now, part of it really is just because in a privatized university system, people are incentivized to encourage young, impressionable people to go get into a bunch of debt to go to a college that they really probably don't need to go to for a successful career. If that's all they're looking for, they would be way better off finding a union hall and getting into an apprenticeship program. But you know, when you live in a privatized education system, that's what you get. But one of the reasons why even other countries will funnel their young people towards college, even if it's free, is because just because somebody gets out of high school doesn't mean that they aren't still in an apt position to learn. And in fact, getting people into the collegiate atmosphere where they can start doing like field work and actual research and things like that is important, because you get people excited about this shit. You get them into a position where they want to learn a bunch about it, and they use some of the most valuable time in their lives to learn a shit ton about it. I mean, I'll tell you this much. It's way harder for me to learn shit now than it used to be. And it's not that hard even now, but that just goes to show you, like, I feel like I used to be able to learn shit very fucking quickly, and now, I'm a little slower on the uptake. Everyone gets slower with age, right? I'm not old at all, and already I'm starting to see, like, this sort of thing seems to take me longer than it might have when I was a kid. Like, we should use that time better, but we don't. Earlier on, you said, I'm a bit retarded. I highly disagree. Don't do yourself a disservice. You're actually very knowledgeable. Well, thanks, sweet Dave. I was being self-effacing, to be sure. I know that I'm not actually retarded, but I also don't have any misconceptions about me being some super intelligent person. I know about the things that I've researched and read about and am interested in, and I don't know about plenty of other things. And there are all kinds of aspects within the things that I know about that I don't know about. You know, it's like Donald Rumsfeld once said, there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns. There are things that we know that we know. There are things that we know that we don't know. And there are things that we don't know that we don't know. When's the last time you heard a leftist quote Donald Rumsfeld? Last year I was deeply depressed. Year before I was having an okay summer trying to get back into music. Year before was my rookie year and I got in trouble slowing down my summer. Oh man. Summers, bro. I will tell you, the older you get, the less summer makes a difference. The less summer means anything. Although I guess it's going to mean something for me now that I have a kid. Like in a few years, summer's going to start to mean quite a bit. But, dude, okay, you know what? When I was a kid, I used to be against the idea of year-round schooling. But now I think, the more I think about it and the older I've gotten, the more I think, do kids really need summer vacation? Or would it be better to have longer staggered vacations? So have the school year go all year round, but have like 4 regular vacation periods. Like, how long is summer vacation usually? Like, let's see. School usually doesn't let out till like the last half of May. So let's assume a week there, and then June and July. Let's assume 8 weeks there, 9 weeks. So 10 weeks. Let's say there's like 10 weeks in the average summer vacation. Let's just say there's 10 weeks in the average summer vacation, and then you get like maybe 2 weeks for Christmas and a week for Thanksgiving, or like 2 weeks for Christmas and almost a week for Thanksgiving with a couple of days off scattered around. You basically get like 12 weeks of vacation. Well, what if that was divided up into like having all these weird staggered ones? What if it was grouped into groups of 3? So you've got like spring vacation, summer vacation, fall vacation, and winter vacation. What if, bro? What if? I think it would take a lot of pressure off of parents, for one. It would take a shit ton of pressure off of parents because it would be easier for them to schedule shit. It would be easier for them to plan big family things because they wouldn't have to schedule it at a time when everybody is crushed into everything. I'm always hungry and I always need to trim my stupid beard every 5 minutes. Aw, poor pig Mercy. I'm sorry. The fact that you can quote that without looking at your phone or a piece of paper is quite impressive on its own, I must admit. Thanks. Now, I'm a bucket of weird old quotes from old rotten politicians, bro. I'm a treasure trove of that shit. So I think that with all this turmoil, there becomes a great opportunity to create a new form of world peace predicated on a global interdependency headed up by America. Henry Kissinger, speaking on the matter of trouble in the Middle East.
Phoebe's intelligence reminds me of my philosophy professor. Dude, I'm wasting myself on YouTube if you guys are correct. Aw, Phoebe's a twirling goddess. You guys are too sweet. This does feel like a talking circle. It does kind of, doesn't it? That's good. I'm not college educated, so that's nice. You all deserve some kind of trophy for somehow looking at this tub of lard without gagging in disgust. Bravo, I'm truly amazed. Oh well, Doom Guy, you still gave me that subscription. You still gave me them watch hours, didn't ya? Still gave me that good old YouTube premium revenue. Still gave me that good old watch page revenue. Look at that, bro. You gotta pay me to hate me. That's the fucked up thing about fucking on a monetized YouTuber, bro. I got fucking watch page ads on this shit. You think this shit ain't gonna be monetized, bitch? Ah, you sweet summer child. Notice how you're fucking on me, but I'm all smiles. Bro doesn't know that she is trans in Mississippi. Ain't shit these people can say to her to ruin the vibe. Yeah, literally. If I'm in a good mood, it is despite despite the fucking vibe of my state being pretty fucking set against me, if you will. Although I will tell you, there are not nearly as many bigots in the Deep South as people make it out to be. I'm not saying it's not a problem down here by any means. I'm just saying it's not like I find that. Okay, so here's the thing. There's two things going on. Number one, there really aren't as many bigots as people would think, just based on the amount of bigots that there are, right? Because the prevalence of the problem makes it seem like it's more prevalent than it is, because people look around at their city and they see how few of those people are around and how rare it is and how roundly they are discouraged, right? And they look at a place like the South where that sort of thing is just accepted and they think, oh, well, everybody down there must be a bigot. Well, the truth of it is, number one, a lot of people will say one thing when it comes to what I consider like their borderline anonymous little stickers that they put on their trucks and shit, and the outright anonymous behavior that they engage in on the internet. I think that there's a real difference between that kind of thing, that where you've got no skin in the game ultimately. You know, I guess you do have some skin in the game if you're putting a like a sticker on your car or something, but it's not a lot of skin in the game. You're putting your truck in the game. You know, you're putting your car in the game. It's not the same thing. But I think there's a big difference in a lot of these people between that and what happens when they actually meet a trans person. Because what actually happens when one of these people meets or has to talk to a trans person, I can tell you as a trans person, is usually, all right, thank you. Have a nice day. It's just like talking to a regular human being. Like, they don't like some people do definitely treat me differently because I'm trans. Some people are definitely like rude to me in a way that they're not to other people. But most people, like honestly, most people even that are that way aren't that way after a few times of seeing me there. I guess they realize that I'm not some deranged rape beast and they decide, okay, I can tolerate this person. But that's contact theory for you. Most of those people have never met a trans person. All they know about them is what Fox News tells them about trans people and what Tucker Carlson tells them about trans people, which is that we're all bathroom predators, when in fact we're all victims of bathroom predators and other predators besides. Like, that's the truth of it. Trans people are way more likely to be victims of that kind of thing than assailants. But, you know, people have to see a trans person to realize that that's the actual truth. People don't just believe it when you throw a different statistic in their face. They actually have to meet the person in question. They actually have to see for their own eyes that that person is not some kind of heinous criminal, that that person is not some sort of evil monster, you know? I'm in the South, so pretty much everyone is a Christian, but thankfully there are a few bigots. Yeah, there you go. There are a lot. What I will say is that there are a lot of attitudes down here that are coddling of bigotry in a way that a lot of other people are uncomfortable with, but I'm also kind of an advocate of using that to our advantage. If we're going to make bigots comfortable, right, with talking their bigoted shit, then we should also feel comfortable to confront it with logic and reason, right? Not just to scream at them, but to actually sit down and talk to them and be like, why on earth do you think the things you do? You know, because it doesn't jibe, in my mind, with what I know about reality and, like, the human condition and that sort of thing. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So where are you coming from with this sort of thing? Like,
What is your standpoint? You know, and those sorts of conversations are productive. Those sorts of conversations force people to acknowledge that there are other ways of thinking about things than their own. At the very least, it forces those people to come face to face with the reality that their way of thinking is not the only way of thinking. And if that's all you do, you've done society a service.
Remember the eating the cats? Dude, eating the cats, eating the dogs. These Haitians are horrible. They're eating the pets. Eating the pets. It's so crazy how they paid $787 million out of court to Dominion for defamation, and yet they're still a news source. I know. They've literally been proven in a court of law to be defaming, lie-telling bastards. Literally, at this point, they've been proven in a court of law to be fucking completely journalistically lacking in any sort of integrity, right? But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. And fuck it. I know it doesn't matter to the average Fox watcher, but neither would that shit. Like, if that shit came out about CNN, it's not like every fucking Democrat is suddenly going to stop watching CNN, so fuck it. Yeah, people are susceptible to the media organizations that they fall in with, but the fucking legislation, the legislators of this country, the regulators of this country are still going to allow them to go around calling themselves a news source? Like, at what point do we decide too much is too much? At what point do we decide that news sources have to start providing their fucking sources somehow? Not providing, like, you can't provide all your sources, but if there is an anonymous source or some shit, it's just one of those things, right? Because on the one hand, anonymous sources come out all the time with shit that is true, you know, and like there's other evidence for too, right? So maybe the standard needs to be that, like, if your anonymous source is all that you've got, there has to be a disclaimer, maybe, you know, like, because I feel like a lot of these, it's happened so many times now where an anonymous source leaks some shit, gets the whole country worried about something, and then it doesn't end up materializing. Because the point of the news at this point is not to inform and educate, it's to entertain. It's to get people to doom scroll. It's to get people to endlessly fucking worry about what's going on in the world instead of worrying about what's going on outside of their door. That's what's important. Not what's going on in... I live in the deep south. The nearest giant city to me would be Memphis, I would say. I don't worry about what happens in Memphis. I watch the news for about, you know, I don't even watch the news. That I'd be lying to you guys if I said I watch the news. I probably watch about an hour of news clips a day, maybe. And most days, not even that. Like 30 minutes worth of like news clips and news adjacent clips in an average day. Now, sometimes I'll watch more if I'm researching for something specifically. But I watch about 30 minutes of that shit, read about 30 minutes of that shit, whatever it is. And then just like my great-grandpa did, he would have been flicking off the TV for him. For me, it's clicking on YouTube and hitting a humorous podcast up and saying, well, at least I don't live in the city. Or thank God I don't live in the city, you know? That's my attitude when it comes to the news. Not that these things don't matter, not that they aren't important, but that you need to focus more. It's way more important to focus on the things going on in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state. That needs to be the order of importance. The most important thing that's going on for anyone is how they are doing, right? And then how their family is doing. And from there, it goes on through like points of like the connective tissue of a society. But when it comes to political entities, the thing you should care the most about is not what's going on in Tunisia or what's going on in Iran or what's going on in Israel. Ultimately, your primary and main concern should be what's going on in your town, what's going on in your little patch of land. How are you managing that? It does not mean you should not participate in activism for those other things. But you should also keep an eye on like how you're spending your personal time and what sort of activism can be done in your local area. Because those sorts of changes cascade. If you want to change the world, the best place to start with that is your town, your little slice of land, your little slice of country, whatever you've got, your town, your apartment building, whatever you've got to work with. Start there, work what magic you can, and watch the changes cascade. I watch 90s Mariah Carey music videos nicely. Nice. I only get my news from the esoteric dreams of a swamp hermit named One-Eye Smokey. He only accepts payments in corn. Oh, well, I don't have access to One-Eyed Smokey, unfortunately. I should run for office? Dude, I'm not going to say too much, but there's like a 50-50 chance as to whether I stay on the land I live on right now. And if I do end up moving at some point, I fully intend on moving back to Missouri. And if I ever move to Missouri, I will run. Seriously, I'll do it. Fuck it. If you guys will finance my run, I'll run. I'll probably fail. I probably won't get it. But if I do, I'll do my best, you know? What's up, Helly? And that kid who loves corn icon? Yeah, dude. You would literally do really well. Do you think so? Big Mercy? Mayor of Festus? Dude, Glitch Dash, you gotta understand, I would never move to Festus. Real talk, real talk. So number one, I just want to say Festus is getting brought up because it's a joke that Brett Keane, the manatee, lives in Festus. I've talked to the manatee on this channel, and I've, made jokes about him in the past, but I just want to say, for the record, the Keens do not live in Festus. I know that for a fact. I'm not going to tell you guys how I know that, but it is publicly available. It's not like one does not have to dox the manatee or go to any doxing site to know that the manatee does not, in fact, live in Festus. The manatee lives in a different part of Missouri. But he did live in Festus at one time, and I have visited Festus a bunch, and I will tell you, Festus is the opposite of a strong town. Festus is a shithole. Festus is located directly, Festus proper is different from Crystal City, and so because I'm a native of that area of Missouri, I can tell you a lot about it. Crystal City and Festus are located directly next to each other. They're called sister cities, and they basically have the intersection of Highway 67, which is a U.S. highway that runs north-south, terminates at the Mexican border. I don't remember where it ends in the north, but it is also intersected by Interstate 55. And if you don't know this already, highways in America sometimes become these awful things that I've recently learned are sometimes derisively called by urbanists, and I consider myself a bit of an amateur urbanist, you know? No, but they're called stroads, right? So a street road, it sounds like an awful word because it's an awful phenomenon, and that's what happens in Festus and Crystal City. So 67, you face a couple of stoplights that get you more accustomed to the kind of stop and go traffic of the city, and then after you get past I-55, you encounter the stoplights that mark the beginning of the strode that is I-67 through fucking Crystal City and through Festus and up through Herculaneum and every fucking place else. Literally, it's one big long strode for like 60 miles through the greater St. Louis area. And it's horrible. It's horrible. Very few fucking crossings, but lots of, it's the weirdest fucking place, right? Because Missouri is kind of a more progressive place. Festus does have some sidewalks and some walking infrastructure and shit, but it all has to compete with these awful fucking stroads that they basically keep traffic cloistered in the city and make things way more dangerous for people walking. And you'll see people just walking in the grass and shit in areas that there's not sidewalks. It's a shitty fucking place to live. It's a shitty fucking town to live. I would not want to. I would never. Dude, I'll just be honest with you. I'm gonna be fucking real straight up with you guys right now. There is not a city in Missouri that I would move to. Nope. There's not a single city in Missouri that I would move to. I would move to the country if I was going to move to Missouri. There's plenty of beautiful old country lots all over Missouri. What there is not are good, strong towns in Missouri. Sounds like an STD. My date gave me the festus.
Dude, it does. It is an STD. It's a big fucking herpy on the fucking. It's a big herpy on the cock of Missouri. That's literally what it is. It's a giant herpes sore on the cock of Missouri. So it is an STD. Maybe your partner did give you the festus. I don't know. I hope. I hope not, but you know. But no, if I was going to move to Missouri and run for office, I would run for some kind of county level position first, because I would definitely want to move to the country. I'm literally racking my brain right now thinking if there's one walkable city in Missouri. I'm really thinking. You know what? Okay, I'll change that a little bit. There's not a single walkable city in Missouri, but there are walkable parts of several cities in Missouri. Okay, so like if you go down, like for example, certain parts of West St. Louis are fucking beautiful. Like if you go to the Chuck Berry statue near Webster University on Delmar Boulevard, that is like Delmar Boulevard is so fucking packed with people. I love to see it. Delmar Boulevard is fucking beautiful. Pretty much any time of year, as far as I can tell, too. And it's just packed with people. Less packed in the winter, but even like in the middle of the summer, dude, you will see people packed out at every restaurant, long lines at every restaurant because people are just raring to get in, and people are happy standing in lines too. People smoking joints, dude. It's a fucking chill ass place, but it's because it's in a college town, and because what is that little town called anyway? University City. It's because University City has taken steps to make Delmar Boulevard and the surrounding streets way more walkable. They deprioritize cars. Cars are made to wait on pedestrians and trams and things like that. They have a trolley service, which is something that I thought was super fucking unique. They have an active fucking trolley service. At least last I heard they did. Maybe they discontinued it now, but last I heard, Delmar Boulevard had a fully functional trolley service. The parking that is available is behind the buildings, and also like serves as these big parking lots that also serve other areas and shit. There's actually fucking residential space in that downtown area. There are buildings that have like restaurants and shit on the bottom, and like residential space in the floors above with some office space mixed in. Like that shit is so fucking rare. That shit is so fucking rare outside of big cities in America. Literally, that shit is so fucking rare. But it doesn't have to be. It didn't used to be. I'm totally not saying that because I'm obsessed with trains. I do not see what you said that was train related. Things should always be walkable. I 100% agree. And not only that, walkable areas should be connected in ways other than cars, dude. And I used to be way more defensive, by the way. I used to be way more defensive of the ideas of cars. Let me just tell you guys a little bit something about me, right? Because I didn't start actively streaming until about 6 or 7 months ago. So it's not like I've got like oodles of content to point you guys back at. I used to be pretty fucking anti deprioritizing cars. I used to be a very much pro car person, especially when I lived in my van, because, you know, a lot of what I saw in terms of urbanist advocacy made me feel like people wanted to just get rid of cars entirely, and like they weren't considering people that were like in my position and shit. When, you know, now I realize that it's kind of fucked up to suggest, well, you know, people can't afford houses, so just let them like sleep in cars. Like that's just as good and just as viable and just as human. I think people should be able to live that way if they want to, but I think that like I think that in general, transit across the country shouldn't be done with a personal car if it doesn't have to be, right? That's what I'm saying. There are some urbanists who would want to get rid of cars entirely and would say, well, we'll also fucking have to do a bunch of other things to get people like out of this homelessness situation, right? But we need to get rid of cars too. So, like, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we need to really fucking radically
address the way people get around in this country, because you shouldn't need a car for every fucking trip. You shouldn't. You just plain shouldn't. America is a place where you have to have a car to get anywhere, but it doesn't have to be that way. We've been led to believe that it has to be that way because they take advantage of the fact that so many people live in the country and so many people have never had experience with public transit that even comes to rural areas that they don't even know how it would work. But we can change that. We can make America a place where, like, my ultimate goal for public transportation and infrastructure in America, I want you to be able to get from Bangor, Maine to Los Angeles without ever stepping foot on a bus or a car. It takes me 45 minutes to drive to work. I hate it. And imagine this. Imagine if whatever suburb you live in, or whatever bedroom community you live in, or smaller town you live in, was connected to the bigger city that you probably work in, or vice versa. Well, imagine if those two things were connected by some sort of like commuter rail that serviced not just twice in the day, but serviced like 8, 10, 12 times a day, something like that, every hour or every 30 minutes. There are trains that run like that in the Netherlands. There are trains that run like that in the Netherlands and all over different parts of Europe. Trains where you can reliably be sure that even in a small fucking community, you're going to have a train ride out of there within an hour or two. Instead of like nowadays where you miss your train, you might be waiting for 4 or 5 fucking 6 hours before there's another one that comes to take you to another station. You know, like, rail service needs to be expanded in the United States. There are plenty of places that used to be connected by rail that now aren't connected by a passenger rail service anymore, but that are still connected by cargo rail, because the like retail and manufacturing industries were not going to allow the motor vehicle industry to like kill freight cargo, and the auto industry didn't want to end that either because that's how they ship a lot of their cars. So that never went away. Cargo rail still exists, but in a lot of fucking places, you can find places, literally, where it's clear that cargo rail has been preserved, but passenger rail has been deprecated. And those things need to be rebuilt. Those things need to be brought back. The problem is people's thinking. They hear you shouldn't have to have a car, but instead they hear you should not be allowed to have a car. Yeah, that was the problem with my thinking for a long time, honestly. I interpreted a lot of what people said as not you shouldn't have to have a car, but as you shouldn't be allowed to have a car. Now, there are some people that will make that argument. One of them that I do want to argue with is Paul's ego, because, you know, people think that we agree on everything, but that's one of those things. He hasn't brought it up in a long time, so I haven't brought it up. But it's one of those things we disagree on a lot. I think you should still be able to drive. I think a perfect America is one where only 10% of people are driving regularly, but they have a way better experience because the rest of everybody else is now either using they're using public transport of some kind. And maybe part of that is going to involve road trains. I mean, imagine if we created a public transit system that was so fucking effective that people started using it. And like, what if the demand for public transit became way higher as a result of a few successful public transit projects, and the reduction in traffic from those alone allowed us to create things like road trains that effectively transport people just like a train would, but they do so over America's wide and fucking well-developed and well-maintained interstate highway system that is already connected to all the major cities and a bunch of smaller ones. Think about that. A road train is never going to be able to haul as many people safely as a regular train can. There's just too much crash risk there, in my opinion. But what a road train could do is haul about well, honestly, like when it comes to commuter trains, a road train probably could haul just as many people as a regular fucking train does. Especially if you made them bitches double-decker. Made them double-decker? Dude, think about this. You make them double-decker and you add a big old fuel tank under sections at the bottom, not just for weight, but to give added fucking range to the vehicle at the front. Or you add extra batteries if it's electric vehicles. Now that really could add a lot of weight.
And then you wouldn't have to deal with them being top heavy.
My grandfather used to take the train from one town to another and be back before nighttime. This was in the 50s. Why in 80 years have we been denied that option? We can have 300 flavors of Pringles, but are only allowed one method of transportation?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's fucking ridiculous, the arguments that people will make for this shit, but ultimately they're all just repeating auto industry propaganda that they don't even realize is that. They don't even realize it's that, because you're 100% right. My, and everybody else's grandpa and great grandpas and shit used to be able to take public transportation to and fro. It used to be incredibly common for rural communities where people were spread out to be connected by a fucking tram service or a trolley service. I don't know what you call it, a streetcar service, something like that, that would stop if somebody was out there to be picked up and would continue going if not, right? That, like, basically a request to stop fucking system. And that sort of thing provided transportation for thousands of people across America for decades, right up until the interstate highway system began to be built. And like a confluence of events happened in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. A confluence of events happened that led to America tearing up most of its public transportation and going over to cars. And most of it was egged on by auto industry lobbying. But some of it was also cultural. Some of it was a cultural shift. I mean, even some of that was egged on by the auto industry, but a lot of it was not healthy for our country in the long term. Road trains like a bus centipede, something like that. Basically, a road train, you can see them in Australia and shit. Basically, a road train is a neat utilization of the physics of a semi truck, right? Because one of the neat things about a semi truck is that they can haul thousands of tons of weight, right? They can haul massive amounts of weight because they're not, like, fundamentally, right? The engine is moving that load with there's very little friction involved in it and shit. It wants to move on its own with just gravity alone. So, like, ultimately, you don't have to provide as much power as you would think to move 86,000 tons, which I think is the max capacity for a semi-truck. With that in mind, you could have massive road trains with that in mind that would support, in some cases, hundreds of people being moved at once with one train, perhaps thousands. I don't know. Thousands is probably a really out there goal, but you get what I mean. And here's the thing, we would have to invest in public transit to start this, right? Because right now, if you tried to do road trains in America, it would be a stupid idea, because they're going to get tied up in traffic in every big city. They're going to get tied up in traffic trying to leave their fucking areas and shit. It's just a bad idea right now as America is. But if we can get like 10% of drivers off the roads, if we can ease that and ease the trend of people, because right now we're stuck in this system where we just keep adding more lanes, we just keep adding more capacity, so we keep getting more drivers and we keep having to add more capacity. We're stuck in this loop, right? If we go a different way, if we start adding to the feedback loop and let traffic stabilize and actually start going down, and then stabilize at that lower number for a while, then we can start introducing ideas to ease the burden even more while we get even more and better public transit built. I think we need high-speed rail connecting every city in this country. And I think we need other kinds of rail connecting cities, connecting towns and smaller cities to the bigger cities.
I view it as a circulatory system. The idea of it on paper is awesome and ingenious, but after nearly 100 years, it's a bloated mess that causes more problems than solves them. Yeah, 100%. The interstate is an amazing feat of engineering and design. It's cool, it's grand, but fuck, is it a dinosaur?
It is a dinosaur. That's ultimately the problem with the interstate system. It's not that it's non-functional. It's not that it's, not a cool thing. It's not that it
wasn't smart in its day. It's not that it didn't accomplish the function it was meant to accomplish. It's that it's old. It's an old and outdated way of doing things. Um, it's a relic from a day. It's a relic from Cold War times when we thought we were going to have to repel an American invasion, and when the military thought, like a lot of people don't realize this. Part of the reason why the interstate highway system was developed was due to Cold War and post-war era fears about some sort of military action having to go down in America, and the military being able to deploy easily to these places that were not super accessible. Because one of the logistical problems that happened during World War II is that there was land where people could build factories that just weren't fucking connected very well to the existing infrastructure. There was existing infrastructure to factories that wasn't able to handle like the existing production, and that really fell flat when it came to handling even more production. And so the interstate system was basically a way that the federal government could codify things and to regulate them and to make absolutely sure that now it had other purposes too, but one of the purposes of the interstate highway system was to make sure that the US military could like move, logistically speaking, anywhere in the United States. That if it contracted goods from Seattle, it could move those goods down to Washington, D.C., regardless of the rail lines, regardless of anything, because a road is a way easier thing to repair than a rail line. Yeah, and you can look it up too. One of the primary reasons for the development of the interstate highway system was to solve the logistical problems of the military in not just in fear of a future conflict, but also because there had been logistical problems in America due to some of these limitations during World War II. Well, we have that. We can continue to have that. Just add more rail lines. That's kind of what I'm saying, too. I think the interstate highway system is a great system when it comes to showing us what American cities can be. But you know what every interstate highway system has running right in the middle of it? Anybody know? Anybody know? What is every American interstate required to have in the middle of it? No, in the middle of the literal road. I'm talking in the middle of the highway. What separates the 2 lanes of northbound traffic and the 2 lanes of southbound traffic? Or the 3 lanes of eastbound and the 3 lanes of westbound, or whatever. What separates them? I never heard this part of the American Auto Saga. Oh, yeah. That's why America's reliance on cars is so hard for us to fight, because it's not just, auto industry influence that helped start it. It was military industry influence that helped start it. Well, since nobody's saying it, interstates in the United States are required to be divided by a median. And this median ensures that, basically it provides separation from the lanes of traffic, just in case somebody has a crash or something like that. But I'm of the opinion that every one of these medians would be a really good candidate for some kind of overhead rail system. So if we have to keep the crash mitigation of it a thing, right? And I agree that's probably a pretty good idea. Then what if we build high-speed rail lines that run on elevated piers above these medians? Or better yet, all of these interstates have wide fucking easements. All of these interstates have wide easements, some of which are outfitted for an outlet road or something like that. But a lot of these easements could, in theory, like by just taking a few more meters of land through eminent domain, you could give yourself the room to build high-speed rail lines that go along the interstate highway system. So what I'm trying to say basically is that the interstate highway system could serve as kind of a beginning network, right? Like the interstate highway system could be looked at as like a good candidate for where to start building these rails. You know, like build some of them along the interstate rail line, or I'm sorry, along the interstate highways, places where you've already cleared a bunch of land, places that are already designed to go to and from cities. I don't know if this is a bad idea from the standpoint of some kind of city planner, but it seems like a good idea to me. I was looking for the word and couldn't remember median. Wouldn't there be an issue of cars slamming into the rails? Well, that's kind of one of the reasons why I said build it on an elevated platform so that there's less chance of cars slamming into something, because at that point you would just have the danger of the big old posts. But yeah, that's a valid concern. Although I will say, there is, I believe, a section of I-25 from Las Cruces to Albuquerque. I believe there's a section of I-25 that has this sort of setup where where there's like a rail line between the two cities that goes in the middle of the interstate. I may be wrong about that. Maybe it goes to the side, but I thought I remembered it going through the middle of it. But anyway, ultimately, I don't think that that has to be the idea we go with. I just think that it's worth considering. Um, like these interstate highways are already connected to cities, and a lot of them are already near like businesses and shit like that, and infrastructure that you would want in order to service this rail line. Because if you don't build infrastructure to service it along it, or I'm sorry, if you don't build it along infrastructure that can be modified pretty easily to service it, then you have to build a whole new infrastructure to service it. And you will have to service it, which means you're going to have to build access roads along big stretches of the rail line and shit like that. It's just not a perfect solution, in my opinion. Whereas building them, within, like, let's say a half mile of an interstate, I think doing something like that gives you the ability to connect up super easily to one of these access roads and to use that as like a cut in for the maintenance road or whatever. But you also get access to stations and places to put stations, I should say, by going along with the interstate system as a model. But yeah, ultimately, America's transportation model needs to get away from cars, and that's going to involve using the interstate highway system a lot less and reserving it more for road trains, road trippers, people that want to live in their cars and RVs and things like that. Like, that's where I think, like, RV culture, I don't want RV culture to die, but the interstate highway system is, like, going to be way better served as a recreational thing and a commercial thing than it is right now as a thing that everybody relies on for their commute. I would love to see in America where less than 50% of Americans rely on interstate and U.S. highways for their commute. A train passes, irony. Well, what do you think made me so passionate about the issue? I live in an area, too, that used to be served by passenger rail that is not served by passenger rail anymore. But yeah, dude, I will tell you guys, one of the things that changed my mind, though, on the issue of cars and interstates and all this other shit, right? I used to be way more defensive of the ideas of cars. But what ultimately changed my mind was when I lived in Massachusetts for 6 months in 2023. Because for the first time in my life, I lived in a walkable city. And that's why I was racking my head so hard earlier to think of, is there a walkable city in Missouri? Because I grew up there, and I really don't think there is. Are there cities you can walk in Missouri? 100%. But, like, there are several trips you can take in places that I grew up in where, like, eventually you're going to have to cross into an area that just has no sidewalk. Or eventually you're going to have to cross the road in a way that is not protected in any way, you know? Or you're going to have to go over some sidewalk that's just not maintained at all, that nobody even gives a shit about. And a lot of places where I grew up were like that. But Massachusetts, as near as I could tell, was not like that. Literally every town I spent any significant amount of time in Massachusetts was walkable on some level, on some fucking level. Now I'm sure that there's places in Mass that that's not true, but every place I set foot in Massachusetts had an air of walkability to it. Now there was a lot of deference given to cars, especially in the West, but the farther east you got, the less deference was given to your fucking personal vehicle. And I think that that's the way it should be. But North Adams, Massachusetts is the town that radicalized me because I've never lived in another city where I could get to a gas station just by walking down the block. Literally, I would walk down the block and across the street, and there was a fucking gas station. Full service, too. Big old gas station with all the fucking amenities, all the little, hot foods at night, and all the fucking stoner snacks you could want. And they had tea dispensers and tea syrup that you could add, like syrup that was meant to be used for sweet tea, so you could make your tea as sweet as you wanted to, which I took advantage of. So it was like amazing to have that. But across the street from that gas station, there was another gas station, a much smaller one that offered way less, but still, it was, there. It was there. And if you didn't want to cross the street and all you needed was a blunt wrap, you could go to that one. And if you turned right out of the little arterial street that connected to our house, you would end up in downtown North Adams after like a 10-minute walk. You would walk for like 10, 15 minutes and then be in downtown and have access to like 20 different restaurants and a bunch of different stores and shit, all of which sell different things. Now, North Adams has its problems, don't get me wrong, but one of those problems is not being a walkable city. Well, Massachusetts is more walkable due to it being one of the first cities in the country. Same with Savannah, where I am. People forget that most of the cities we have are built around rivers, rails. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the problem is, though, that's true of a lot of American cities. A lot of American cities were built around rivers and rails because they provided easy methods of transportation and easy methods of providing industry, right? And getting industry to your area. But that's true of a lot of American cities, and yet a lot of American cities have been remade in favor of cars. What really happened is not that so many American cities were built after the invention of cars, it's that so many American cities radically changed after the development of cars. Because you can look at pictures from the town that I grew up in, Park Hills, Missouri. You can look at pictures from way back and see way more walkable areas. You can see that the downtown used to have, it always had street parking, but the street parking used to be closer together because the lanes were narrower and the sidewalks used to be a little wider and the parking spaces used to be a little smaller, and people were fucking flooded out in that downtown. And you can see pictures all over the town where you can see that they've just built the sidewalks, and those pictures continue to look good, right, for the next 20 or 30 years until you get to the point where finally, the cynicism of the 60s and the radical fucking industrial highwayification of America has happened. And you can see all of these things starting to decay. You can see the downtown area starting to become a little less sparsely parked, or a little more sparse, and the sidewalks start to become a little narrower and shit like that. And I would still say Park Hills does a lot of things right when it comes to its downtown area, but that's where it ends for me, and that's why it sucks so bad, because you get outside of downtown Park Hills and you are basically in a giant sea of unwalkable bullshit. But when you go to North Adams, it's not like that, right? And I think the reason it's not like that is because the people of that town and many others in Massachusetts, maybe the people of Massachusetts in general, did not allow General Motors and companies like them to lobby their way out of having public transit in these areas. At least not fully. The Midwest sucks, but it's slightly better than the South, in my opinion. I lived in Alabama for a few years, and it was extra garbage. Due to this nation being built on the frontier, but with rails in the 1800s, it was walkable still. Yeah, 100%. It's gorgeous. I love its beauty during the day and embarrass its spookiness at night. Embrace its, yeah, there you go. When you say it, what do you mean? What do you mean it's gorgeous? What's gorgeous? But yeah, the Midwest is better than the Deep South in general. I would say you're less likely to be fucked with for being different up there in the Midwest. You know, you're way less likely to be fucked with for being different. But at the same time, you're not immune to getting fucked with because you're different down, or I'm sorry, up there. I'm fucking high. I'm sorry, y'all. In most small towns, you can see where the original town was on Main Street and then the cancer that grew around it. Savannah, I was talking about Savannah. Okay, sorry, my bad. Savannah, Georgia, I'm assuming. Not Savannah, Tennessee. But yeah, that's true. And it's something I really hadn't thought to point out, but you're 100% right. In a lot of American cities, you can pretty much look at the downtown and maybe the surrounding couple of blocks to get a sense for what the city used to be like. And if you like, the farther away you get from that, the more you see the urban sprawl and the non-growth, the cancer that grew up around it, basically. You know, next time I go to Missouri, I need to do like an expose on my hometown when it comes to urban design and talk and use it as a springboard to talk about the death of the American small town and the death of American cities in general, how they've been turned into dead places. Because I think there's two areas I would choose to contrast in Park Hills if you want to get a good sense for where Park Hills is beautiful and an example of the type of urban sprawl, uh, like industrial cancer that we're talking about. Take the parking lot of the strip mall in Park Hills, so the strip mall that has Save a Lot and Dollar General in it. Take that parking lot and do like a 360 if you can in Google Street View. Take like a 360 of that, look around, and then, man, that's so weird. Feels like I busted my ear on something, but I can't remember busting my ear on something. Anyway, um, but take that Save a Lot parking lot, right? Do a 360 view if you could, and then take that same 360 at the downtown area, like near the subway or something like that. Not the actual subway that goes underground. I'm talking about there's a Subway sandwich shop in downtown Park Hills. But if you take those two places and you compare them, you see the difference, right? You can see how the area could look. And you can see how they handled another grocery store that was close to downtown. Like, yeah, it's got its own massive parking lot, but that parking lot extends to the back of the businesses that are on Main Street, and in that way, um, it actually provides parking for those buildings that are there, and in that way, it's less of a stupid use of land than it would be otherwise. It's still a massive parking lot that could have other businesses in it, or some sort of like food truck place to set up or something like that. It could have something like that, but it doesn't. Whatever. At the very least, it's providing buildings, or it's providing parking for the buildings behind it. But the strip mall parking lot provides no parking for anything else because there's nothing else really to do within walking distance of that parking lot. I mean, sure, there are things you could technically walk to from that parking lot and not die, but that doesn't exactly mean they are walkable. You know, there's no crossings that you're going to be able to use to get across easily. There's not a whole lot of sidewalks you'll be able to use to navigate it. And we're talking about a place that could, in theory, be changed in that way. They could make that all of these little parking lots, and they could improve them, not just by landscaping, but by adding sidewalks and street crossings, and by adding more places for small businesses to exist. No, we can't provide adequate living space, but by God, you will have a Denny's near the Shell station. Exactly. Exactly. We can't provide adequate living space. We can't provide good public infrastructure, but by God, there will be a Denny's right next to the Shell station. There will be an ugly strip mall right across the parking lot from the Walmart. This is the reason why, by the way, the reason why politicians and corporations and the rich people that own and control the government and the corporations, the reason why they favor this kind of city design is because it's what is best for delivering the most money into all of their pockets. It benefits the auto industry by requiring people to have cars, and it benefits all of the people who own the chain retail stores in all these places by presenting them as the only viable options for fulfilling your retail needs. And where there are small businesses and shit, it benefits the landlords by filling up their businesses that are massively overpriced because they got a Chipotle in them, right? So they get to rent out this spot for about $1,000 worth more. Or I'm sorry, they get to rent out a spot for like $800 to $1,000 more a month than it's actually worth, because oh well, there's like a Walmart across the street, and there's like a Chipotle and a fucking there's this and that and the other thing, and there's a Denny on the fucking corner. There's a Denny's right over there. So what are you bitching about? I mean, it's going to pay for itself. But this isn't the sort of infrastructure or city planning that actually benefits human beings that have to live in these places and travel to these places. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, probably 1,000, population of 300, maybe less. That is incredibly small. Oh god, I fucking hate Dollar General. It's like herpes, how it's spread around the South, being in the middle of nowhere. Who needs overpriced cheap shit? Dude, everybody. Dude, overpriced cheap shit is the story of the poor South, unfortunately. Dude, like, that's the thing. People that are super fucking poor a lot of times can't afford to go any further than the Dollar General. That's why Dollar General pops up in these unpopulated places. That's why Dollar General pops up in some random field that you wouldn't think would have anything fucking around it. Literally. You wouldn't think that this Dollar General would have. There's a Dollar General in a place that I think when I go back up to Missouri because I need to go up there for like personal reasons. I've got a bank account up there that I need to settle. Um, but when I do eventually do that, I need to film this fucking Dollar General and just film the area around it and show why it's such a weird fucking area. Literally, because it is a Dollar General that is a good 5 miles from any civilization, I would say. A good 5 miles from anything like civilization. Like, there's so it's on back roads, right? It's on this back road, these two kind of like back road type highways. One is Highway O and the other is Highway D, I think. So one is Highway O leaving Park Hills, Missouri, and this Dollar General is at the corner of O and I think Highway D leaving Farmington, if I'm not mistaken. And these are lettered highways, which in the Missouri highway system means they are 2-lane highways with a speed limit of 55 miles an hour. And they go they're basically in-county highways. So a lettered highway ends where the county ends, and it becomes a new lettered highway. Or sometimes they retain the same lettering. It just depends. Anyway, I want to film this place, though, because it makes no sense where it's at. It's at the very end of Highway O, and its intersection with Highway D, and it's about 5 miles from either of the towns that it's connected to. But that's because that Dollar General is not meant to service the people that live in those towns. It's meant to service the people that live in that country. And frankly, a lot of the people that are going to that Dollar General aren't poor people, but some of them are. There are still some like relatively poor people or working class people that have moved or that had moved to the country of Missouri before it became kind of unaffordable. There are families like that out there to this day, and I guarantee you they're going to Dollar General for shit that they would normally have gone all the way into town to get something like that, just because it's easier. Because they just got to go down the road a little bit, and then they get to Dollar General, and then they can get whatever it is they need. They can get their milk, or they can get that box of stuffing to make dinner, or whatever. And yeah, they're going to overpay for it compared to if they went into town, but the gas price justifies it, right? And that's how Dollar General manages to suck so much money out of these rural areas, and that's why they place them in places like you wouldn't think a business would be out here. You wouldn't think a business could live out here. And, well, a small business probably couldn't. A small business that didn't have the money to build a big old building and provide a big sense of security and everything that comes with one of these big corporate structures, a small business that was offering the same sorts of products probably wouldn't be as popular. It would probably have to have a gimmick to be as popular, or it would have to just, you know, like, I don't know, its gimmick would have to be providing these things at cheap prices, which is not what Dollar General does, right? Dollar General's only gimmick is you can get what you would normally get in town out here if you go to Dollar General. But the problem is, people have been so fucking cowed into believing that the only reliable general store, that the only reliable department store, whatever you want to call it, is one that's corporate run, that a lot of people are wary to even try out a general store or a convenience store or something like that that isn't owned by one of these big conglomerates. Decay from the inside out. Yep. Dollar General just sucks the life out of tiny communities. If they get big enough, it's a Walmart. Oh, dude, yeah. A Dollar General made large enough, like the one I'm talking about, is honestly big enough to be a little bigger than a Walmart neighborhood market. And I'm pretty sure it's a DG Fresh store, which means that it's got a produce selection and shit. I guarantee you there are people out in the country, in St. Francis and western St. John counties, that are using that Dollar General as their grocery store because it is way closer to go to that Dollar General than to go all the way into Farmington. Plus, they don't have to deal with any of Farmington's traffic. These places are cancer. These places, these big corporate fucking structures that, like, make... Dude, it's not just them, though. It's all. It's the system. It really is. Corporatism has been allowed to rule America for the last 50 or so years of it, and everywhere you look, you see the foul fruits of it. Everywhere you look, you see the foul fruits of American corporatism fucking let off the leash. The decay of public transit has made it so that many people feel like they have to have a car just to get anywhere, and they really do have to have a car just to get anywhere. And these big corporations with these little big box stores meant to service bedroom communities, they prosper because people now have to have a car anyway, and so they can build these things out of the way of all the traffic and everything else, and get people from that angle, and get people, if they're Walmart or something like that, they can get people on the angle of that they're cheaper. They, if they're not Walmart, if they're Dollar General, they can get people on the angle of, well, it's available. You don't have to go all the way into town to get this thing. And I'm a victim of this shit, dude. I live in a fucking tiny little bedroom community with no stores of its own. Literally none. There's not a local place for me to get groceries around here. There just is not. There's one fucking local grocer within, I would say, like 5 or 6 miles of where I live, and they're not exactly what I would call, like, I don't even know what to call them, because it's, as near as I can tell, it's a format of store that doesn't exist in a lot of other states. But they basically take pallets of goods that have either gone out of date, or that were dented, or that were declared undeliverable for some reason. They buy them at wholesale, and then they sort through them and put those items up on the shelf at a highly discounted price, because their quality isn't guaranteed, basically. We call it a dent can store. I don't know what other places call it, but yeah. And like, that's not exactly a great place to be getting all your groceries, especially because that place has no fresh produce. That place has no fresh meat. So if somebody had to live off of what that store has, they would literally be living off of frozen meat and frozen fucking veggies and shit like that. It's ridiculous. Okay. I only buy Milo sweet tea from DG. Oh, dude, me too. I like Milos. Lawns, American lawn care only became a thing due to the excess of nitrate post World War II. Fertilizer was sold en masse and marketed for that white picket fence look.
Oh, dude, that's fucking wild. That's fucking wild. If it really is just fertilizer industry fucking plants that tried to get everybody to do oh my god, bro. That sounds like some shit that would happen in America, though. That sounds like something we do, right? Let's do this thing, not because it actually represents some genuine organic movement in American culture, but because it'll help the fucking fertilizer industry out.
People don't talk enough about how malnutrition is linked to higher crime. Oh yeah, and people don't talk about a lot of things enough, though. Honestly, lawns are hellscapes for biodiversity. Would you live in a house that gets chopped down halfway every week? Almost as bad as cats.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, right? With the kind of selfish and individualistic attitude that so many people take towards their personal home and belongings and lawn and all that stupid shit, is that a lot of times they're ultimately serving to prop up a system that is fucking them over and hurting their natural community. But a lot of people just don't give a shit. I love cats and all, but they are monsters when it comes to killing off ecosystems. Oh yeah, cats are like one of the worst things that can happen to a natural community. And the reason why is not what you think, actually. It's not because, yeah, cats are efficient predators, but so are hawks. The difference between a cat and a hawk is that a hawk never catches anything that it doesn't intend to eat, but a cat really will just kill something for the fun of it. Not only that, but a hawk doesn't scavenge. You know what I mean? A hawk doesn't scavenge for, like, the leftovers of human food, usually. A hawk will try to catch living prey and eat it, right? Whereas a cat will catch living prey and just kind of like leave it to die there uselessly, and it'll do that multiple times, and that is what makes cats so destructive. Not necessarily the fact that they hunt and that they're so good at hunting, because if they were just hunting and killing the things that they needed to eat, it wouldn't matter if they were super effective at it, because they would be killing way less. But they don't. They kill way more than what they need to eat, and they leave what they don't eat to just rot on the forest floor, or in this case, on your yard. I love cats too. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who super chatted, and I will see you guys later.